Agree with the moderator, nor Reverend Robinson, that we want some kind of agreement. We want agreement by which we can live or die. You choose. If you won't listen to me when I make an appeal for the Negroes because you have no concern for the Negroes, listen to me when I make an appeal for America. You claim you love America. Well, we love America. But you are driving us back and you are making a Samson out of us, and we are going to pull down the pillar. Should you try to pretend that I'm crazy because I want America to be saved? And then you think we have no right to ask for something? Is it too much to ask you to grant us human dignity? Should we be put down and shot to death for this request? If so, you can aim your guns. What the hell do you think we care about dying if you're going to deny us the right to live?
Hey, hello everybody. Hey, listen, you could put the first chart up there. Black David, you could put the first chart up there. Just the cover chart. I'd appreciate that. Hello everybody. Welcome to BM Black Man Unfiltered Network, and we're gonna talk reparations. Now, let me start by saying I don't consider myself an expert, but I had an idea, so I want to share this idea with you guys. So let's let some people come in, I guess. Put something in the chat, say hello, and we'll go from there. Uh, so, uh, Black David, you could put up that first chart, so I could just have that up when you get a chance. Just the cover page, the cover chart. Yeah, just leave it there, right there for a second. So when people come in, they could take a look at that, and we'll start from there. I don't know who's in there. It's only a couple of us right now, so I don't. We got to wait for some folks to come in, and but then I'll get started. I know it's early in the day, so we'll see how it goes. I figure it'd be a whole bunch of people waiting to talk about reparations. Right? I know some folks said they were going to shoot through and give their opinions on what we're talking about. So we'll see. Other than that, Black Day would just be me and you talking about these reparations. But let me start by saying this, and when people come in, we can they can catch up as we go. One of the things that I wasn't keen on reparations. I just don't think that the government is going to actually acquiesce to our needs. Listen, so I'm not against reparations at all. If they actually cut a check, I'm damn sure gonna, take mine. So I'm not gonna turn it in. However, I just don't think it's coming. And I just think that I hope there's not a lot of people just thinking and hoping and praying that the government's gonna come through. I mean, they just, I don't think it's worth. Not, I shouldn't say worth. I just don't think you should get your hopes up that they're going to actually do something for us like that. In the meantime, you should always strive to do your best and fight your battles. And if a check comes or reparations come, then that should be gravy in your life, as opposed to something that bank on. So that's how I look at it. So anybody listen, we're waiting for some folks to show up, man. It's a quiet Monday. Usually people show up and we can talk. Hey, Mr. Bennett, how you doing? All right, man. Good to see you. Um, so we're talking reparations. I guess we didn't know. I don't know where you fall on it, but I think everybody says if they're giving us a check, we'll take it. So I have an idea about looking at tax exempt status as opposed to writing a check. So while people come in, I might as well just keep going instead of waiting. So, hey, Black David, next chart, please. All right, so listen, don't try to read this stuff. Only reason why I put this up here, and I don't even know if this is really official parchment, but I only put this up here because Abraham Lincoln, officially said the slaves were free with the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1863. Pretty much, not pretty much, but 160 years ago, right? So remember that date because I want to come back to that. But so it's a watershed moment because when you look at the plight of Black folks in America and how far we've come, you had the 400 years of slavery and you had 160 years up until like last year of emancipation. And I look at a generation every 20 years. That's my metric. Generation. I take a swag at every 20 years as a generation. So that means we've been so-called free for 8 generations. And one of the things that you hear from a lot of Black folks, and I agree with it, that because of slavery and because of the way we were treated in America, that we're generations behind the power curve when it comes to our white counterparts, some of our white counterparts, because we all know that there's a significant amount of whites that ain't that much better off than anybody else. But for the most part, owning land, building wealth, we're pretty much behind that power curve because of the generational uh, 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 I guess generational strife that was bestowed upon us, even if we were free, right? Lynching, burning down not no neighborhoods, but towns, redlining, Jim Crow, you name it, or any kind of oppression you could think of, segregation was heaped upon Black folks even after emancipation. But the only thing I would say is as bad as it was and as bad as it is, look how far we've come. I saw a metric that said that there are more Black millionaires in America, American millionaires, Black millionaires, than anywhere else in the world combined. I mean, how could that be? Right? I believe it. Like 1.5, they said 1.5 million Black people are millionaires in America. Now, I see that metric a couple of places. I didn't go verify it, but it sounds about right. Right? Just billionaires other places, but the rank and file citizen in a lot of places, Black countries, very, very poor. That's not really that true here in America. We have a lot of well-to-do Black folks, and I don't think we explore enough of how far we've come in a short 160 years. Even though we have a gender war going on, we have rampant poverty and crime in certain neighborhoods, but we shouldn't just focus on that because we have some pretty good neighborhoods as well where there's a lot of well-to-do Black folks. We just don't talk about it enough. So uh, reparations will. I'm not trying to make a case against reparations. What I'm saying is that there are certain kind of reparations that if we got it, we might be able to catch up in the generational wealth gap, as opposed to everybody getting a lump sum check. Because we know what a lump sum check means to just about anybody. I don't think it would go towards building generational wealth. For some people, it will, but how many? Yeah, yeah, but I'm not talking about billionaires, Mr. Bennett. I was just talking about the rank and file millionaires. But I agree with you. There are, a lot of black billionaires, not a lot, but the black billionaires in those African countries, and I guess the richest black billionaires outside of this country. I'm just talking about millionaires. All right, so Black David, you can switch this chart. I got my point out of here. Right. Oh yeah, you got to make it a little smaller. It don't have to be big because I don't want people don't have to read it. Right. So I looked at the California, couple of reports on reparations out of California, and one is the Assembly Bill 3121, and I think that was kind of directly had something to do with Gavin Newsom. I guess both of them do. These are two separate reports, two separate committees, and they kind of converge on the same kind of conclusion. But there's some distinct differences between these two reports. And anybody who wants to read about reparations, this I wouldn't, I would suggest go ahead and look at these reports. You could just look them up online. They're very, very wordy. They're very wordy. And yeah, I saw that comment. They're very wordy, and I have some issues with these reports, right? I think the amount of word salad in the reports might hurt them because in the AARAC, the African American Reparations Advisory Committee, there was a couple of things in there that I had problems with. And one of the things is when they talk about conclusions, the conclusions are like 13 pages long. So when I'm thinking about a conclusion of a big report like this, I figured it'd be like in bold, after all is said and done, the 400 years of slavery, the 160 years after emancipation, to make us whole, this is what we need from the government. And it's not that easy to ferret out. Now, I didn't read it with a fine tooth comb. If it's in there, I couldn't find it. There's a couple other things in there too that I had a problem with. One, somehow the rainbow community got their for some reason there's some issues in there, something about the rainbow community. And I'm saying, what the hell does that have to do with reparations and black people? Why do we always have to have a rider, a parasitic rider, on the things we're trying to do? Both reports mention the alphabet community. And I'm saying, what the hell does that have to do with anything? Whether you have some kind of dangling modifier, but if you're black and you're eligible, then you're black and eligible. It doesn't matter who you go to bed with. So I think that's one of the issues I have with that. The other thing in the ARC report, I call it the AARAC report, when they go through the qualifications on who should get reparations, they start out with lineage and then they have a couple of other line items. And then they have this catch-all that essentially says if you're a white person and you know somebody who's black, maybe you might be eligible for reparations as well. Now, I'm being facetious, but it's kind of like analogous to how white women took over affirmative action. They have these clauses in there that you could ride a truck through instead of just being succinct and say, hey, if you're black and the Census Bureau says you're black, and you got some documentation over the last 10 years that says you're black, yeah, then you get reparations. So in the second report, something similar, but they're a lot more distinct on the lineage question, right? And they kind of mirrored what I thought, and it'll come in the charts. Uh, Again, let me say this, and I should have said it up front. I commend the committees on both of these reports on reparations. Actually, both quite informative. And if you got some time, look them up, on the internet and breeze through them. I mean, you can see the work that was done in putting these together. And the AARAC report, they had they had like 16 different not committee meetings, but open houses where people got up and talked. And I just happened to look at one of those where they gave everybody 2 minutes from the community to say their part. And I thought it was pretty good. Uh, and those committees were mixed, right? A lot of women. The AARC committee, they have white people on the committee and stuff like that. So we'll see. But here's one of my issues, and we'll move on. One of the issues I have with the report is that, does anybody really believe that Gavin Snake Oil Salesman Newsom is going to actually ratify any of these reports and codify it into law and actually give checks to anybody? I don't believe that. I just think that there was enough pressure on him where he might have went to one of his aides and said, I'm going to get these people off my back. And probably one of the aides said to him, why don't you give them some money so they could go ahead and do a reparations report? They can go off in the corner and they can spend a couple of years doing that, and we'll give them some money to do it. And that's exactly what happened. And so now he'll pay some lip service to these reports and never sign them. And he's probably saying, damn, man, what can I do for the jigaboos next? So if anybody believes he's ever going to sign this, they're crazy. It's as simple as that. But that doesn't make the reports bad. I just don't think they're going to ever be signed into law. That's number one. Number two, one of the issues I have with lump sum check reparations, that is inflationary. They're going to have to print new money because it's in the trillions. If you look at the numbers, they would have to print new money, which is going to be inflationary against all Americans. And just a little side note, and this is fiction. If you ever saw The Watchmen on HBO, in that, the fiction had Black people actually got reparations in that show. And this is just fiction, but sometimes, life imitates art and vice versa. Everybody hated the Black people. Everybody was impacted by the fact that the Blacks were fat cats with their reparations. That was just a sidebar to that whole show. And sometimes good science fiction writers kind of anticipate how people would really react to make their fiction seem more realistic. Now, I'm not saying that's what happened, but we already know inflation is sky high. So if they had to print trillions of dollars more to give us reparations, what do you think would happen with our position in society? Because that's exactly what they would have to do. So again, if they stroke me a check, I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna take it. But my idea is not inflationary at all. So Black David, if you can go to the next chart. By the way, before make sure, if y'all really are interested, go online and download these reports, and a good bathroom reading. Black David, you get a chance, you can go to the next one, but I can move on if you didn't hear me. All right. Okay. Good. We don't have to go through the definition. You can, but based on the United Nations Committee on Reparations, these 5 type of reparations is something that's the most important stuff on this chart. So if there's anybody who was harmed, restitution is one of those things, and you can read that. Compensation is another one. Rehabilitation for the damage that was done, and satisfaction. Like public apologies, like in South Africa, they had the Truth and Reconciliation Council, and they had recommendations, that kind of stuff. We never had that in America, by the way. Probably not a bad idea. And then the last one is guarantees of non-repetition. And I think, I pretty much know that if anybody ever tried to enslave us again, America would be over, because nobody's going to go back into that. I don't think we would be scared enough to ever let anybody do that to us again, ever, 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 never, ever, never, ever. Right? So that's a one-time thing. And it shouldn't happen to us again. I think we should all be willing to be exterminated before that happens. So anyway, next chart, Black David. All right, so I'm not going to go through all the calculations and justification. So listen, I took a swag that a certain percentage of the population is 18 and over that's in the workforce, right? And that will come out with, since we're 13.6% of the population, that comes out to like 34 million black folks. Okay. And then when you do the numbers and all that kind of stuff, if we kind of swag a 22% tax rate, that would include federal, state, and local altogether. I mean, it's not a fine tooth comb, but I just picked 22, right? Because if you make 50 grand or 44, 45, $47,000 a year, you're pretty much in a 22% tax bracket on a federal level. But, they do some machinations with the numbers, blah, blah, blah. So just took a swag. In order for them to give us a tax exemptions at the federal, state, and local level, it'll come out to like 19% of the U.S. Appropriations bill, which is in the trillions. So here's what I want to say. I'm going to back up a square. One thing the white puppet masters, and when I say white puppet masters, I'm not really trying to be pejorative, right? The people at the top are actually white, okay? The one thing that they understand, and one thing they hate more than our black asses, is paying taxes. They do everything they possibly can do not to pay taxes. They even create, havens in other countries to hide their money and all that kind of stuff. So if I'm sitting down across from one of these white fat cats with my cognac and he's with his cognac, and we start talking about tax and tax exemptions, they understand it. That's a language they can understand. And so if 19% of the tax budget was exempt from paying taxes, and that's for us, right? They could just move money around, right? Instead of, doing, studies for the migration patterns of gnats and shit like that, and an extra war and more government, military industrial complex spending and all that kind of shit. They could move the tax code around to accommodate a 19% hole. And the reason why I know that can happen, right? And if everybody can put their little memory cap on, when the orange man became president, the very first thing he did was redistribute the wealth by taking away the majority of people's tax loophole for mortgages and interest on your mortgage, and capped it at $10,000. And all that change of wealth went right to the wealthy. And nobody said shit. Not even the Democrats, by the way, because the wealthy ones enjoyed the extra money. So you can't tell me they can't make an accommodation for 19% to give us, and now here's the kicker, to give us our tax exemption for 20 years. For 20 years. Do you understand? Give us tax exemption each one of us who qualify. Go to the next chart, Black David. Okay, so here's the implementation process. One, you have to qualify. All that information is there, right? We know that there's 13.6% of black folks in this country. And the census says that. And guess what? Each one of us remembers in the last 10 years that we filled out a form for employment, for a credit card, or for whatever the hell it is. It says, what race are you? And, most of us put down black. So if I had to come up with 1 out of 10 years, if I had to come up with evidence that I said I was black just once, I can do it. And probably everybody else can do that shit too. So all 13.6% of us should qualify for that, right? So for 20 years, at 18 years old to 38, we get a tax exemption as part of our reparations. No tax, zero, right? And then they create a new form, a 1040 Reparations 1863, right? They got all kinds of flavors of 1040s, 1040 EZ, 1040 this, 1040 that. How about a 1040 Reparations 1863? And 1863 was the day of the Emancipation Proclamation. And that's 20 years. Give everybody 20 years, right? If you're 40, you get to 60 years old, no tax. If you're retired, guess what? The tax code gives you rebates if you overpay. So for your last 20 years before you retire, they repay you for 20 years worth of taxes. No, we don't need no interest, so we don't need to complicate it. Just get your money back and shut up. So that's that. Oh, you married a snow bunny? You married an Asian? You married somebody who's not black? Well, you know what? That's what filing jointly means. You file jointly, guess what? Neither one of you pay any tax because you're the primary. So I'm just telling you, here's a couple of things that I think that we overlook. If we didn't have to pay taxes for 20 years, that's 22 to 25% of every hour you work. 100% of that money is yours. Over the next 20 years, what would that mean? Individually, what would that do for you? Would you only work 8 hours? Or would you work extra hours? If you were a butcher, a baker, or a candlestick maker, would you just put the minimum in, or would you have 3 or 4 jobs? Would you do overtime? Would you be an entrepreneur? What would you do if 100% of for every hour you spend is yours to do what you want with for 20 years? For 20 years. And the reason why I said 20 years, because it's generational, right? Our biggest complaint for the 400 years they had us in chattel slavery and 160 years that they effed us over for all the bullshit they did. They put us behind by generations. So instead of giving me a lump sum check so half the people will blow it, you give me a chance to catch up generationally, not only for me, but my offspring for the next 100 years. 5 generations. We're not asking for all the generations, just asking for 5 of them. 100 years codified and ratified, and you can't take it away. 100 years, 20 years each. Would we be right? Would that be beneficial to us? Would it be more beneficial than a lump sum check? I know I can't stand paying taxes. In my 30-something years of working, I'm not a rich man, but I paid over $600,000 worth of taxes. I'm thinking where my life would be if I had that $600,000 to myself, to my family, to my future. What about you? I don't know. So listen, anybody wants to come up, we could chop it up. I'm not going to drag this out, but I know a lot of people are lump sum people, right? So, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying, let's talk about it. Let's talk about whoever wants to come up. I see easy money in the. Come on up. Who wants to? Let's tell me where I'm wrong. Tell me why this is not a good idea. Because we'll be talking the language of the man, because they understand evading taxes. 100%. It's funny. I don't call Anton Daniels a puppet master, but he has he talks about once you make wealth, your next goal is to find out how not to pay taxes on that shit, how to hide your shit strategically and legally to minimize your tax burden. So this is something that the man can understand. And it's not inflationary because it's just moving money around. But a lump sum check here's another thing I didn't say. Why is California doing their own individual reparation? Can you imagine 50 states having 2, 3, or 4 different kind of reports on it? This shit shouldn't be at the state level. It should be at the federal level, and it should not even trickle down. I hate that shit. It should flow down as a codified mandate that, from the federal down, telling all 50 states, you got to comply or else we're going to punish your asses. So like I said, might not be the most handsome person or the smartest person, but shit, man, I have a pretty good life. I think my life would be better if I didn't have to pay taxes. What about you? What about you? Anybody come on up, join the conversation. Tell me where I'm wrong. Tell me where I'm right. Tell me why a lump sum check is better. I know everybody talks about reparations. So here's a chance to talk about it. I'm not no expert, but I like my idea better. Anybody, come on, easy buddy, get your ass up here. Let's talk. Yeah, 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 man. I hear you, but that's not the point. That's not the point, easy money, that they don't want to have nothing to do with it. Hey, what's going on, Jay?
What's up, bro?
Hey, man, what's happening, man?
Not
So what
much. Can you hear me?
do you think, bro?
Okay. I'm just tuning in, man. I'm just getting in the
Well,
house.
I gave you a little bit about what I was thinking about tax, a tax exemption as opposed to a lump sum check, from the last year. So I'm just saying for the next 20 years, if you didn't have to pay state, federal, or local taxes, what would you do with
Mhm.
that extra 22 to 25%, where every dollar you make goes into your pocket?
Yeah, that
20 years. And I use 20 years because 20 years is like a generation. So everybody gets a 20-year stint of not paying taxes.
that's a lot of money, bro.
No, it's not.
That's a lot of money. 20
For a
years?
20-year, but no, but you
Oh,
only do it year by the budget comes out year by year. 19% of the budget yearly.
right.
20% of the budget.
So will we get it after our 20-year?
No, 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 no. You get it every year.
Get it every year?
Yeah, you get tax exempt for every year, every 20 years. You pull it, you put out a 10, you put in a 1040 every year. Here's my idea, right? You put in a 1040, right? Some people
Mhm.
put an easy form in. For us black folks, we put a 1040 reparations 1863 form. 1863 is because that's the year of the Emancipation Proclamation, exactly 8 generations ago.
Yeah.
So,
So
so go
are
ahead.
we talking about city taxes, state taxes,
All of them.
and federal?
Yes.
A lot of money.
Yes. Yes. Yes, and,
So,
and, and it'll amount to like what's with you? Oh man, look at you getting attacked over there or something. God, what's going on, Mr. Bennett?
What's good, gentlemen?
All right, you heard my soliloquy, right? So
Yeah.
what's going on, man? This damn cat was getting on my damn nerves.
Yeah, I say cat, man. Your cats are cool, man. Go ahead, Mr. Bennett. What you got, man?
Well, first of all, shout out to the 7Bs, as you can see here, just the dominance here, and also I like the bifocals here. I like the glasses here. So
Yeah.
we just own the spaces. I'm telling you, guys don't know.
Studious.
Doing this movement, brothers. I'm telling you. First of all, shout out to your paying for just putting some thoughtful work behind your efforts to define it. I'm definitely one. I don't think that the money only would work, which is a reason why I'm not sure why they haven't tried it. Because I think if they did give straight money, it would ultimately wind back in the hands of the puppet masters. So why not just give it? Because you're going to get it back within a generation anyway. So you would think that would be incentive. So that may just go to the hate that you were talking about. The hate so much that they won't even do something that may, in the long run, benefit them by simply just giving us money outright. So I am a fan of doing things that'll help to improve, because it's not just wealth isn't just about money, it's also about a mindset. So anywhere that will help people to improve the quality of their lives and mindset, I'm behind. So I'm definitely down for like free education. I think you should be able to go as a Black American, any public institution in the country should be free for you to get that education that you want. And it's sad too, because you just, in line with the reparations for slavery, you have just reading an article, there's still $13 billion plus that's still owed to HBCUs. A lot of people complain about the status of HBCUs, but a lot of these HBCUs are still owed hundreds of millions of dollars. I think the last school I understand got paid, I think it was Tennessee State. They got like something like $300-400 million to help with the infrastructure of these schools. I mean, people complain about the living conditions, but when you're underfunded by hundreds of millions, I don't care who you are, you're going to be under the 8 ball. So again, getting first part of the reparation, getting these schools the money that they're owed so that they can increase the standard to make these campuses more attractive. And then again, if those could be free, then again, because I know when my daughters, when they were trying to go to school, they went on an HBCU tour. Several schools, they got on a bus, they were out for a week, they toured all these HBCUs. But anywhere you go out of state of New Jersey, it's $45,000 and up. Any out of state. So if you're an ADOS, you should be able to go to any school of your choosing, HBCU or state-funded or government-funded school for free. I think that would help to, again, increase the level of education and hopefully, the literacy and the education needed to make better decisions in terms of how you deal with your money. With this, have a mandatory clause that talks about how to manage your money, investing, and things like that, so people can have a better sense of what to do with the money. So I think I would certainly be all for that. As far as the tax-free status for 20 years, again, I don't think that'll necessarily change the spending habits of people. To me, it's almost just another way of giving people free money, because again, even if you earn it, if you're still going to go and spend it on just pure consumerism or perishables, then again, you're not going to move us necessarily forward. I think there has to be a mindset that is for those who have a mind to want to invest, to buy land, to grow things. I think as many opportunities as we can create for people, I think that should definitely be there. The only other critique I would have is you talked about in terms of who qualifies for it. Again, I'm a firm believer that, one thing I like about ADOS, the movement, even though I don't agree with everything, just like Black Lives Matter, I don't agree with everything those guys did either. But I think one thing that ADOS did was they helped to clarify and to give Black Americans a unique identity that's different from our other brothers and sisters. I talked about this on the show a few weeks ago, where basically you're talking about the 300,000 slaves that came directly to the U.S. and the descendants of those slaves. A lot of the 13.6% that you're talking about, a lot of those people came in the 60s after civil rights, after the Voting Rights and Civil Rights Acts of 64 and 65. A lot of immigrants from the Caribbean, a lot of immigrants from Africa started coming to the country en masse after those times and not before. And so are we going to include those people in the process? It's not like I have anything against my brothers and sisters from those other countries. And I do believe that, we need to stand together on common cause for some things, but in particular here. So, for example, if you're from Haiti, then your issue is with the French. If you're going to seek reparations, you should go to France to seek those reparations. It shouldn't have anything to do with what we have going on here. So I think you have to, or a person would need to prove that at least one of their parents has a claim to being a descendant of slaves in the United States. And so, again, with the availability of DNA tests and whatnot, I think, look, that's an incentive. The technology's out there. I did Ancestry. And again, my ancestry so far goes back to like the 1740s, and it's still going back. So, you spend $100, I think it's worth it. Or if you want to make that part of the package, if you want to, if you want it, you can order a free test and get yourself tested. And if you can demonstrate that, those your lineage is to those early stage South Carolina or whatever, when those slaves initially came into the country, then by that measure you qualify. But I wouldn't have it just because you checked Black on a census that you should automatically qualify for that, because you do have, at this point, you've had 2 or 3 generations of Black people from other countries who came here because of the opportunities that were opened up because of the civil rights movement that, for the most part, ADOS, Black Americans stood for. They're standing on the shoulders of those people. And so I would definitely want certainly those descendants to certainly be first in line to receive those benefits. But I think you would have a lot of hangers on. Just like, now with the affirmative, even though affirmative action has been overturned by the courts, you still have a lot of people who benefited from affirmative action simply because they had the skin, but they didn't have the history, they didn't have the lineage, and they were able to get in because of that. And a lot of people were turned away because of that. In some schools, African immigrants are actually preferred to African Americans because they think that we won't be so uppity when it comes to.
Well, Mr. Ben, let me interject. Let me interject what you said, so before you get too further down there.
I was mostly done with that. You can take it on. I was mostly done. That's my.
All right. So listen. I'm not going to argue with what you're saying, but let's just look at affirmative action. The real culprit that took that away from us is white women.
True.
Right. So, but I just think about my grandparents, my grandfather who came here in the early 1900s. One of the things that these two reparation reports do is not only talk about slavery, but they want reparations for all the shit after the Emancipation Proclamation that happened to us too. And that didn't just happen to Black Americans.
Right.
Okay. So the mixture and the intermarrying between those people kind of muddy the water. So I would say it would be easier just to say maybe we get a little less, but just lump the Black people in here because we have enough divisions as we are. That's just my thought.
Right.
Okay. I don't have to be writing all this. It's just my thought. That's why I just said, hey, 13.6 Black. Let's just go with it. Maybe that's a little less than what we would get, but that was where I was coming from. But because I do understand what you're saying.
Right.
Because listen, for me to get reparations, I would probably have to qualify through my wife because she's definitely
right.
FBA.
Right.
You know, because her family, they have her maiden name is a town made out. You know, she's named after a town down there. You know what I'm saying? So I'm saying. But so that's my thing. I don't want to get into those arguments because we fight each other enough.
I got you. But
that's from that standpoint.
Even said in that, though, you're still talking about 246 years from 1619 to 1865. That's 246. So again, even your folks who came in the 1900s, they had to deal with the Jim Crow and everything. But again, for a lot of those descendants who had to deal with hundreds of years of stuff going on before.
The only reason why I brought that up, though, is because those reports want reparations for all the stuff that happened after the Emancipation Proclamation as well.
Gotcha.
Not just the previous slavery, right? Because a lot of dastardly shit happened to us after the EP.
Right.
And here's what I say. This is a sidebar. Think of how amazing it is we are where we are under all of that angst as Black people. See how resilient. I mean, if we had real reparations, I think that's what they're afraid of, because if we had all the stuff we deserve, we'd probably be running the country. You know what I'm saying? How did we get to where we are under all of that pressure? And they're throwing the book at us. That the gender war is based on the puppet masters.
Right.
Right? How do we hate our women and how they hate us? That's all programming.
Yeah.
Right? So
no question.
Yeah. So what am I saying? Let me leave you there. JT, what you got?
Right. Hey, listen, brothers, I need to drop off, but I know
thanks for coming up, man. I appreciate
it. Great conversation. I hope you guys keep it going, but I just want to, say salute.
I appreciate you coming up.
I'll catch you guys on Friday, most likely. Or JT, I'll probably see you in tomorrow night. I'll probably stop in on your show too.
Okay, absolutely. Appreciate you,
brother. Gentlemen. Take care.
Yep.
Take it easy. What you got, JT?
This is my thing. I'm kind of like on Mr. Bennett's part when it comes down to how the money is allocated, right?
Okay.
It definitely should be allocated towards, at least, even if not just education, it should be towards business. Where we even if it's a grant for land and property, I think it should be more than just, definitely not giving just a check because it's going right back. But I think it should be something to that point, because just think about what the original with reparations was. Definitely, it was the repair of. It was supposed to be the repair of your land, of your nation.
Right.
So we were, according to, we got a couple of ways on how we look. A lot of people say that we're indigenous to America.
I heard that too.
Yeah, and then you have people that say that we were brought here, right? I think both probably could be true. However, when you're talking, it still was the tearing up of a nation, period, no matter how you look at it. So coming to where we at, one of the things that I think we do have to look at who qualifies for it. Because think about this. If someone is a half breed,
Okay.
even if we say that it goes up under, at least one of your parents being 80,
Right.
is it ADOS?
Yeah, ADO. Yeah.
If that, then we looking at that part too. It's kind of like the same thing that happened with the Native Americans, right? They came and they said if you got at least 2.2% Indian in your family, then you qualify. And you seen a whole bunch of these white folks that was going there and said,
Oh, yeah.
I'm
Oh, yeah.
2%, Native American. So,
Including the presidential candidate, Miss Pocahontas, right?
yeah.
Elizabeth Warren,
Right. Because so I think we would still kind of like have that same issue too. But I think it'd be even worse because we would have people that are from one country, from Ghana, or that's from Ethiopia or somewhere.
Yeah.
But then my family I have a family line that's also
Right.
from America too. It'll be something.
Well, that's why it'll be easier if we just say, because let me tell you, there's enough people who make a distinctions between us. I'm saying let's just simplify it. Do we
Mhm.
really care if a person who at least experienced something what it means to be black in America, even if you have you can't say none of that touches them at all.
Right.
And so
Right.
we have so much that divides us. I can't imagine with the divisions by saying, hey, your skin is black, but you don't qualify from another black person. We're just coming out of we're trying to get reparations from a group of puppet masters who say we don't qualify for shit because we're black and they're white. And so now that we're getting something, the first thing we do is tell other black people you ain't down.
I think I'm saying that would probably be a problem.
You know what I'm saying? As soon as we get some, all of a sudden we're gonna tell other black people you ain't down. I mean, come on. I'm just saying, man. What do we care if they get part of that shit?
It would be another divide. I guarantee you that would be the divide because now we'll go from colorism to tribalism or originality.
Tribalism. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I do hear the points, but I'm saying, what listen, if I get reparations for, I say I just swag 20 years because it makes sense to me because it's not a lot of money each year if you look at it in total to the whole budget. Because nobody complained when hundreds of billions of dollars was transferred from the middle class to the rich when the orange man got in. That's exactly what he did. He changed the tax code and the rich got richer. And we lost our tax exemptions for our home. It got capped at 10 grand. And some people were carrying tens of thousands of dollars for those mortgages on their houses and shit like that. So he wants his 40 acres. Said, well, you might as well forget about that, okay? He said, get your ass up here, Mr. Trade Firm. Get up here and say your part. So anyway, huh?
Trade know what to do with a mule, but you start giving people mules, they ain't gonna know what the hell to do with a mule.
Don't eat it. Don't eat that son of a bitch, man. That shit out. I'm gonna smoke the goddamn mule.
Right, or put damn Christmas. They gonna put Christmas sweaters on it and have it out there just running around doing nothing.
So there were some other things I was thinking about as see, 22% of the money, if every hour you work for, you got 100% of that money. That's not a lot of money every year, right? Maybe you get a rebate of 10 grand a year, depending on what your salary is. Maybe, if you're rich, it's going to be a little bit more. But when I'm saying over a 20-year period, how could you not think from a generational standpoint where you're getting that benefit? Would you only work 8 hours? Would you have incentive not to be unemployed? I'm just saying, see, when you get a check, so I just think that the productivity of everybody would go up. Not everybody, but the majority of people, because they know what the bennies are. Overtime, anything. All that money is yours to do with your family. Save. You might spend more, but you'll save more too. right? I mean, I'm just thinking the value of your hour has gone up by a minimum of 22%. I mean, that's significant. And like I said, it's not inflationary because it's just moving around the tax code. That's what it does, as opposed to printing money. But I like Mr. Bennett talking about school. That's a part of it.
Yeah, that's why I think
Yeah,
just
you know.
just to have that money just free and out, it's gonna go right back to another
But
community.
see,
That's where I have a problem, and so that's why we have a problem right now. Think about this. Even when we talk about the Black American community, right? And they tell us right now that our dollar is less than 6 hours. It rotates
right,
not even one full rotation. So it's like it goes out of our community. I try to see where that community is now just by looking in cities and stuff like that when we're saying communities, because when you tell me communities, I'm thinking a place where you live, work, eat, sleep, build families, bank, shop for
right,
for groceries. You know what I'm saying? That's what I look at as a community, and the way that I see it now in a lot of these parts in America, that there are a bunch of neighborhoods. It's like broken so-called communities. So I can understand when they say it's not even doing one full revolution when you talk about the money it's going through, because I look at the community that I stay in right now, which is very diverse.
yeah, yeah,
I see where the money goes. You
right,
know what I'm saying? One of it is education. Another one is building community centers, whether they're for seniors, for children, for I see the banks that come, the
right,
community banks they have. I see a lot of things that actually have where you be like, damn, you can see where the money is going, because people have incentives in order to, like, for banks, they have incentives for banking. They have,
right.
now imagine if you add the reparations, right? But I think it would have to be something to qualify you um, actually being able to receive the funding. And I
No.
think that's why that's why I have a problem with just giving somebody a check.
Well, see, I'm not talking about giving people a check, right? I'm not, because what I'm telling you is that this is money they earned because they're working for it, right? If it's a tax exemption, you still have to earn the hour to get paid. So you ain't just sitting around waiting for a check. You earn that money. You just get to keep it all. That's different than getting a check.
But is
And
that actually a reparation though? Is
yeah,
that
well, yes, why would being able to keep 100% of your money a reparation? Of course it is. If the government
so?
is giving it to you, absolutely, affirmative action was a reparation, and they took it away from us.
So do you remember when America gave the reparations to
The
Japan?
Japanese,
Yeah. Do you remember how they actually used that reparations
uh,
funding?
they use it according to their culture. I don't know. I didn't pay attention to that. It wasn't
So,
that much money either. All I'm just trying to say is, and it was in proximity to the event.
yeah,
Those
yeah.
reparations were in proximity to the event, a lot closer than what we are now going through now. And so in America, now, a great deal of those people, of course, didn't have anything to do with slavery
Mhm.
because they're not white, right? And so I hear, reparations definitely. If you look at the UN and what they did for reparations, and some black people got reparations for certain things, like for the Tuskegee Institute experiment. Some people got reparations for that. For Rosewood in Florida, some people got where they massacred all those people. Some people got reparations for that. Um,
Mhm.
Okay, so the biggest reparations that we see backfiring right now is when the Europeans gave the Israelis reparation over in Israel.
In
That's a
Israel. Yeah.
reparation. And so what they did was give one group of people reparations, and they took away freedom from a whole group of people and expected nothing was going to happen because of that. So you disenfranchise a whole race of people, a whole nationality of people, to give reparations to another people and expect nothing to happen. It's ridiculous. So we do a lot of stupid things as human beings, you know. So all I'm trying to say, there's been reparations. So our reparations could come in any form that the government says, we're going to give you something that we're not giving anybody else. That's a reparation. If I was able to keep my every dollar I work for, that's a reparation, right? I get a form, 10, I'm gonna just say this real quick, 1040 reparations 1863. I put my assets down, I put my thing down, and where it says tax owed, 0. That's a reparation. That's a reparation. You know, I mean, if I could get my $600,000 back, man, my life would be different.
Yeah, but this is where I have a little bit of pushback. Everybody
Okay,
don't think
yeah, I see that. I see
everybody
that.
don't think like you. It's gonna. It's like my whole thing is that it should be for the betterment. I'm just saying
Why wouldn't that better me? Why wouldn't that better you? Why wouldn't that better everybody?
because we don't have smart people when it comes down to money.
No, 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 no.
We
We do
don't.
have smart people.
We have
We have,
some.
we have a mix of people who would blow anything that we can't save. Because even if you say reparations is going to school free, there's going to be 10% who ain't going to take you up on that.
So right, but I think it's
And,
gonna be more
and there'll
than
be a certain percentage who will go to that school and flunk out.
yeah, but
They'll be
listen.
stroking the honeys, smoking the dope, and they'll flunk out.
So this is the thing.
So that doesn't mean don't give it to them. So you can't save
No,
people from
I
themselves.
think that there should be. I think that there should be some other, not just giving them a check. I just don't see that.
You keep saying giving them a check. I ain't talking about giving them a check.
No, let me tell you what I mean. Let me tell you what I mean. So in the military,
Right.
we ended up when you get deployed, you don't have to pay taxes. Like I didn't have to pay, and only thing I was paying because I stayed in Michigan. Only thing I was paying anyway was
state
no,
taxes.
no federal taxes. I didn't have. You don't pay state or nor do you pay. Even if staying in the state of Michigan, I don't have to. If I live in Detroit but I work in another city, I would have to, pay those. That's the only place in Michigan where you have to pay city taxes. But so the thing was that we ended up getting paid, man. I think I was deployed in Bosnia.
Okay.
And so we got paid. I'm talking about me and at that time I think I was an E5, and my pay every 2 weeks was about, now mind you, this is in the 90s. So I was getting anywhere around $6,000
with no tax on it.
That is no taxes.
All right, so you tell me how that felt.
You tell me. Let me tell you how dope it was for me.
All right.
I was married at the time, and my wife at the time didn't spend nothing on the side of going to get groceries and getting prepared for our baby.
Okay.
We were what they call a anomaly. It was just a few people that did that. Some people did, and I wasn't even smart like I am now. So the money that I had, I didn't put it in a TSP or 401k. So that was bad on my part.
Okay.
However, when their deployment was basically over, do you know what everybody was doing? Buying BMWs. They had sales on BMWs. Christmas was here. Everybody was.
You got one?
No, I didn't. I already had I had a brand new car from Georgia, and I didn't even get a chance to drive it, but probably about 2-3 months. So, because when I got to Germany, I was getting ready to go over the boat for the second time over to Bosnia.
Yeah. No,
but everybody was giving money back. They were giving money back. They were going back over and visiting home and buying clothes. But that BMW sale, I just remember that everybody and their mama had a damn BMW.
But JT,
I didn't use BMW, but I paid cash.
What's wrong with? Listen, I'm not trying to lord over people's money, right? Because the more money you have to spend, you fuel the economy. I mean, just going back to your thought about turning over in a neighborhood. Our neighborhoods, when we say neighborhoods, we're talking about Black community, right?
Mhm.
Most of us move out of the community and we're in mixed areas. I live in an area where Jewish people live, right?
Mhm.
I'm the spook who sat at the corner, right? So that means I got to cut my grass and shit so I can look like I belong, you know.
Right.
So no, but I'm comfortable here. But am I a part of this community? Only yeah, but I don't hang out in the yeshiva. You know what
Right.
I'm saying?
Right.
So, but when we talk about community, we're talking about where you have some homogeneous people, like in the Black community. And our Black community is pretty much, unless it's a upper middle class community that was fabricated because Black moved there and they own their property. Our Black
Mhm.
community is pretty much a disaster. We all know it, depending on where you go, right? Your old street in Chicago, right? That kind of shit. You know,
Mhm.
so I don't know how to fix that. Now, would this fix that? No. But what it would do is that no matter where you live, there's a lot of Black people who work. They might be living lives of quiet desperation because they live in bad neighborhoods. So what would being able to keep 100% of their check do for them for the next 20 years? How could that not be beneficial to the woman working two jobs trying to make ends meet because she opened her leg to some asshole and now she's trying to cobble together a life for her and her kid, right? That shit will come in handy.
Yeah, but it's still
You know, yeah,
well,
what's the but? I'm trying to say, what's the but? You know, what's the but?
hush money. It sounds like shut the fuck
This is
up money.
what's real hush money, man. It's reparations. Just getting it from the government, man.
But wouldn't you think that it's still, this is my whole thing. Don't you think that we still should have some type of thing that can build? If we're talking about this whole thing with the Black community, to build it, to repair it, and that it just don't seem like, it seems like it'd be repairing everybody else's community, because we already know what our people gonna do. We already know what they're gonna do with the money.
No, okay.
Think-
No.
just don't
Here's
even-
what I'm thinking. The difference is we have a lack of productivity in certain areas in our
What's up?
community, right? So I'm saying that if people, I can't see how the incentive wouldn't be to work more, to do more, to be more productive, especially if you can keep every dollar, right? So, hey, what's up, Grant? Uh, Mr. Intellectual is over here to go to. I think we'll get educated over here, you know, after he gets finished with us and shit. But anyway, I think you're laughing. But you know what I'm saying? But I said enough. Go ahead, Grant. We'll turn it over to you. What you got? What you got?
Hello, gentlemen. How are you guys doing today?
How you doing? Happy New Year, man.
Happy New Year. You know, I think I'm firmly on the side of no reparations. I mean, I think that's
Ah,
just to give you sort of that way we don't have to pretend.
okay.
And so that at least you know where I'm coming from
Oh, that's
and
fine.
sort of my thought process. But
Okay.
let's go with the premise that you can do reparations and you give no taxes. It would be inflationary almost immediately, correct?
Right.
Well, you're giving people just money to spend, which we know that happened during the
Well,
pandemic, correct? So we already have an example of that. I'm
well,
not
they
saying good or
printed money
bad.
for that. But they printed money for that, didn't they?
Well, you would have to print money to give out reparations. I mean,
Mm,
we're already over budget, correct? We're already running deficits. To create more deficits, you have to print more money, which again becomes more inflationary, which also increases the cost generally. The other problem you would end up with is if by and large African American money is currently flowing out of African American money,
yeah,
out of
yeah.
communities,
You got a community.
you would
Yeah.
just tenfold the money flowing out. So you, in essence, you would make the people you're saying that owe us money richer, and then you would make inflationary pressure or pricing pressure on African Americans much more harsher. Correct? They're already be at the bottom, and as they're climbing up the ladder would get steeper. And not only would the ladder get steeper, it would get extraordinarily more expensive. And so I think when we start thinking about these things, we have to think about the macro component. We're not a group of people. We're not isolated in one part of the country. We don't
Hmm.
own just one state like the Mormons do with Utah. And so you don't have this way to sort of cage off problems or sort of solve them, because in essence, wherever you put those funds, you potentially are going to create some other after effects, correct? And so I would just be mindful of that. And so instead of just saying like give out money or grants, but grants are already there for African Americans, and a whole host of sort of programs. And I'm not saying reparations equals programs, and so I don't want to conflate those two things. I think people often do, which I think is highly unsophisticated way of thinking about it. But let's just say you can actually provide a mechanism for African Americans, where there is something to the effect of a sovereign wealth fund. So an example would be the stock market is going to go up almost guaranteed. In 30 years,
Okay.
it's going to be more expensive.
Right.
But what if every African American child is born, we give every child born $6,000 in an account that at the time of their like 60, when they're 60, they would have this chunk of cash there. It starts the process early, correct? And it allows the mechanism of capitalism to then put that wealth in. And so one of the things I challenged my family to do is, instead of buying gifts for kids, toddlers, you should put money away. So every
Right.
child should start off with $6,000
Hmm.
in an account that's no fees, correct? And so by the time they get to an age, they're not forced to make bad decisions. And early on, you can teach them about how to manage money. The problem is, African Americans don't have money, is that the money that we do have flows out relatively quickly. And so if you look at the spending that happens within African American communities, and it's quite a bit, correct?
Yeah.
We're high consumers in a sense of our percentage to our income. And so you have to then think about, how do you get that one behavior, that, let's call it a behavior, correct? A cultural behavior, it doesn't come along with being melanated, correct? It doesn't come along with being Black. It comes along with the fact that of our unique experience, and I think with certain levels of education or lack of education.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to bridge that gap. And so what you want to be able to do is provide the mechanisms or the foundation to resolve what I would say are features or bugs of a large segment of the African American community that would ultimately just damage the very micro economies within largely Black or African American.
Let me ask you one question before you go further.
Yeah.
So you view a lump sum check or a tax exemption as the same kind of damage?
Yes, because
Okay.
taxes would, because even if you give taxes to the rich, a tax cut to the rich still reduces tax revenue, correct? And
Right.
so we see
Well,
budgets.
so talk to me about Trump's tax cut for the rich. You saw that as inflationary?
It is. We know that it is. It's not, and it's not a political question, correct?
No, it's
Similarly,
not.
but even when Bush did it, but any sort of where you're reducing the revenue and your budget is going up, you have to then make other cuts. So you have to make other decisions, which are cuts typically. But we don't cut for.
But
for
they
obvious
move
reasons.
money around though to pay for it. They didn't just print new money. They moved money around they took some benefits from some people and gave it to the rich.
No,
I know I lost some of my benefits, right? They capped me at 10,000. I was able to write off a lot more than that.
yeah, but you can't cut. Correct. They reduce certain tax deductions, correct? But
Right.
by and large, the budget didn't change. So you
That's
may
true.
have lost some
There's a zero-sum game or
write-offs,
something.
yes, but it's
That's
just but in essence, they grabbed a penny from you
Yeah.
and gave the rich billions, correct? I mean, that's the extractive part of that.
Yeah. Okay.
So I would just point out that our biggest problem, I think, with African Americans, I think right now, is that often we deal with our problems through the hammer of social justice.
Right.
But it doesn't work any longer, and it's obvious why it no longer works.
Yeah.
Because the moment you say I'm deserving of this because of some past transgression, you almost have no ability to come up with better arguments, and you have no way of having structure to it. And so, who's going to give African Americans loans? I mean, the banking system that we claim today that discriminates against African Americans would still be getting all that reparation money. It's not as if, African Americans could be going to Black banks, but they don't in droves today. What
Right.
would change behaviorally that they wouldn't put that money back into what we would consider white banks or non-African American banks? So you're just giving money to everyone else while
Hey, Ray,
claiming
well, hold on for a second. Ray, we'll come to you in a second when my man's finished.
that.
Go ahead.
Copy that.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So I think one of the things you want to be able to do is, you have to fix that structure. You have to somehow sort of retard that component of, how money flows out of African American communities, and be able to cycle money. Because the thing that everyone doesn't realize, it isn't money that creates economies of scale, it's debt. And the ability to access huge sums of tenfold debt is why economies grow at an exponent. A flat ability, correct? You have no, let's say you have zero debt or zero components of creating debt or credit to build. You would have a really flat line of economic growth. And so you see large scale growth, whether it be in third world or second world countries, or countries that are sort of in their infancy and growth. They use large scale ways of getting debt into the system because it's a multiplier. It's a significant multiplier. And so
But isn't that based on also the ability for the people to be able to pay back that debt?
Yeah, but you would hope the debt is hopefully the debt creates income and revenue. You would hope that the smart people would be loaning out someone who's providing a service worth purchasing within the community, and that in and of itself would take care of itself, generally speaking. But
so
again, you would need a good service. I mean, you can't have 1,000 wig shops, correct? That's problematic, and what's largely wrong with a lot of African American communities today.
Yeah, I was going to get there, right? Liquor stores and stuff like that. But let Ray, you have something to get in here?
Yeah, I was gonna ask him when he was speaking on the dollar going out of the black community. There's literally no community on this planet that can cycle dollars amongst itself. It's a competition. Black people don't produce anything. Like I just gandering here. Is there anyone else on the panel who actually employs people besides me? Like, we don't produce. We don't create jobs. We consume, and then we ask for someone else to fix that. That in and of itself is the issue. We think that we're all going to be professional investors. Like, you have to own something. Like, every other community that comes here, even other people that share our complexion, own stuff. They own businesses. They employ their people. They take care of their people. We got a little Ethiopia here in KC. They employ their people. They have stores. They have shops. They have restaurants. They do things. They own an infrastructural piece of the city, which allows them to compete and take money from other cultures that they can then cycle amongst themselves, which is how they grow. If everyone just passes a dollar to the person to the left within the black community, there's only so many dollars. Now the community can't grow. You have to take from another community. Every other community does this. And until we get that piece fixed, there's no amount of money they're going to throw at us that's going to fix anything. Because
I hear you.
We don't understand how money works. There's so few of us that actually understand how money works. And that's the reason we can't get ahead. Those of us who are working don't understand how money works. How many people are buying Bitcoin right now? Your reparations are right there. That's your reparation opportunity. Go get it. But we're not doing that. Everything's a scam. We don't believe in anything until after the white people done gone in and every other culture done gone and got rich. And then we're going to sit there going, oh, I could have done that. What? Well, we need somebody to come give us something.
No, I hear you, Ray. So Grant, his basic premise you agree with, right? No, we don't. Okay.
Yeah, I have no. I mean, I think I was hoping I was making that point, but I
Yeah, you did. Both of you guys did. But that's what I was saying earlier, Arpain. My pushback was that it has to be some form of infrastructure more than just giving somebody some money because it's going to go
So how do we fix that? How do we fix that? Everybody have an idea how we fix that? Go ahead.
Well, I was going to give you an example. I was like, you know who's been getting reparations forever? The Native Americans have been getting reparations forever, and look at them. Look at them. like go to a reservation and look at what they live in. Like
Don't
it's
they
terrible.
own so that
It's
just means
terrible, and they get paid to exist. They're like, please don't die. Here's $1,000 a month. Like, I'm not even joking. Like, they literally get paid. Some of those tribes are so close to being completely wiped out that they're paying them $8,000 a month to not die and reproduce. And they're in dire straits.
Can I ask you something, though, Reckless, on this?
Yeah.
Didn't they get the casinos? They don't own those casinos?
Have you seen what those people look like?
Yeah,
They bred them out. They bred them out.
It's
a bunch of Elizabeth Warrens who own those casinos.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So,
because their community, the only advantage that they have is the fact that their tribal law supersedes federal law. So they can, if you come on their land acting a fool and they try to do that racist stuff with them, they can delete people and get away with it. Only difference. That's the only advantage they have. Is they run their own stuff. They get to police themselves. But outside of that, the actual communities where those people live, even when they have a casino, dire straits, horrible amounts of poverty, drug addiction,
and alcoholism. I know.
Yes, it's terrible, and they've been getting money since they got done dirty the way that they did.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean it. But that's what I'm saying. Like, we have an example, like a historic example of a culture that got done dirty, and then they got the reparations, but they didn't get the key piece that's important, because you can throw money at a problem, but once you've broken a person or broken a culture, that you can't fix that with just giving them money in there. They're messed up. Our culture is messed up. We don't have the financial literacy piece. We don't produce.
Okay.
I mean,
how do we
at
fix
least
that? How do we fix
we gotta
that?
change.
How do we?
We have to change. We have to change the narrative. We have to stop going, oh well, we need equity and inclusion. Why do you want to be in a building where they don't want to see your face? Why are you fighting to get money from another man's table that hates you? If you're the best, build and compete. But we want to go be in the building with people that hate us. We fight to go be in buildings where people hate us.
Yeah, it's true.
I would actually look at that point as, right, if you getting some money from some people that don't like you, they're going to figure out before they give you the money how to get it back.
Right.
That's just how it's going to look. It's just going to be cycled back. So, but it's a conversation, because people to really think, if we get reparations, really think about that. If you're talking about getting reparations, right, there are a lot of I can see, in the fairy tale, it's beautiful. We all get money, everybody but when you really think about it, man, do you know the problems that shit is gonna cause? We already said it earlier, Arpan. Yeah. It'll be a big problem when people be like, you not us. You come from a different country. They're gonna take the color part out of it. It's gonna start being another form of division again.
Yeah.
You know what's so funny? Here I am, thinking I'm onto something. I'm just a variation on the same old theme. This is a variation on the same thing.
You know how many people have never even tried to figure it out?
Yeah.
All they talk about is cut me the check. They just cool with it. But when you look at the pros and the cons of it, it's less pros and it's more cons to it. Because you're talking about something that creates division, something that creates war. It may not be war with guns and stuff like that, but man, it'll be a psychological war. It'll be even worse than what it is right now.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, the other thing you got to look at though is and it's the reason, like me personally, like me and my family, like my core family, like my mother never took welfare, even though she could have. We never took it, because if you reach your hand out and you take that free money, you remove your fangs. Now you don't know how to hunt anymore. Reparations would honestly destroy most black people, because they're on that cusp anyways. They don't want to do shit. Just being honest. Like they don't want to work. They don't want to be dirty. We tell people no matter how much money you make, they got that dude that was on Earn Your Leisure. Oh, my mom told me I was flipping, making $5,000 a month doing cars at 16, and she said your hands are dirty. Go figure something else out. You're dirty. Guess what? There's not enough mechanics now. You're about to not have your cars moved. You about to not be able to have your houses built. You wonder why all these migrants are coming here. They're coming here to take all the money that y'all stepping over to go get jobs that are getting ready to get replaced with AI.
And you know what a mechanic is? A mechanic is an IT person.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, gentlemen. I hear what you're saying, and I don't disagree. At least with my theory, you have to work to get your reparations. But it's still a variation on the theme, so I can dig it.
I would rather see it your way, R-Pain, than just cutting the check. Because you're right. At least you got to go get it.
At least you got to go get it. That's
And
all
you
I'm
gotta
saying. You gotta have, at least you have to have a job. I'm serious, at least.
Right.
But anyway, but I hear where y'all coming from. Listen, I wasn't looking for any smoke. I was just looking because I just can't see the check there. Somebody stroking the check and us taking it. And I said, man, you got to do something to even earn that reparation to keep you moving. So I just, you know what? This is when you're retired. You got time to think of shit like that. Just throw shit up there like that. Go ahead, Grant. You got something to say? Go ahead, man.
Yeah, so I would say our framing is what causes it, correct? We tend to, not all of us, correct? I think there's a cohort of us that almost exclusively look at themselves through the lens of being ghetto or through the lens of being poor. Like poverty is now a character trait of us. Not me saying that, but often when we talk about ourselves, we laugh at the fact that we can't pay our bills. But that's become so inculcated in the way we think about ourselves that it's a nothing burger. That there isn't this notion that if you are a capable human being and you can't pay your light bill, it should be something in which you should sort of feel like I should make some depth changes in my life.
Yes.
But it comes along with, well, this is just part of the Black experience. And so it just gets packed into this sort of notion of being a victim of a system that almost doesn't care about us. And because capitalism doesn't care about anyone. And I think what African Americans have done to themselves or ourselves to a certain extent is
Hey, Reckless, you might want to go on mute until you get that on. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Grant. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I think what we've ended up doing is we've taken the 60s civil rights movement and we said, okay, if we can pack everything in through the legal system, and so we can find remedies through this process. Well, we're just packing more bad remedies on top of bad remedies, and so it's like let's say when a Black person becomes a billionaire, we all celebrate. But the one thing that never happens when there's one Black billionaire, there aren't 10 more right behind him or her.
Right.
Because capitalism doesn't work like that. Capitalism does not have racial sort of quotas.
Of course not. Yeah, I agree.
So the moment someone becomes wealthy, they become part of the system. They're not going to reach back because systematically it doesn't work that way. They're not going to come back and set up a mall. And often when they do, let's take Magic Johnson, he ends up opening all of these, TGI Fridays is great. And sure, Magic Johnson made money and he created a ton of low-wage jobs for African Americans. And, we had celebrations in the streets for him or whatever that was. But most of the money went to TGI Fridays and to Magic Johnson, correct? It didn't go to Black people. And by the way, he only replaced just theoretically a white person who had the previous, location. So the money still didn't make it to us. And so we're celebrating these achievements as if it is a trickle down process, and it doesn't work like that. And so as long as we spend all of our time celebrating a Black person doing something as if it's transitory, success does not just melt onto all of Black people once one Black person does it. In essence, if everyone wants to get to that level of achievement, everyone who wants to do it has to at least participate in getting there. And we have to change the way we think about it. And we have to stop lying to ourselves that somehow, like we, given our unique scenario, can't be critical, and other groups can't be critical of African Americans like ourselves, of like things that are features of them. And the best example I've used of it is, we can all agree Americans are often viewed around the world as being not inquisitive. That is not a racial thing. No one cares. It's not bigoted. But most Americans have never been out of the country, and most Americans don't care about the rest of the world. It makes us blind to the world. That is particularly a stereotype. We don't complain. We as Americans generally don't complain. We're not victimized by it. But the moment someone says, hey, African Americans, you have some features in your community that don't really want to participate in life. Like they are drags on your society, and you need to somehow address those drags. And we immediately turn to, well, we've always been victims. The reason we have these hood boogers is because of slavery or something. And I think that's a problem, because we keep giving people an out for being antisocial and for destroying, I think, the lives of well-intentioned African
Well, let
Americans.
me ask you this, and everybody else can answer this. How do we actually fix that other than every individual doing better for themselves? I know you could reach back and have these programs. We've had programs for decades to go back in the hood and try to help people. Then you leave, and these people are still in the same environment they were in before you were there. So how do you help? How do you change the mindset of the fact that we're so many Black people believe in the liberal tropes and all of that kind of stuff? And how do you change that? I mean, that's what I'm saying. Individually, I see how you change it, but how do you change the mindset of people who are just intent on being victims, right? And as long as you follow the Democrats and the white liberal, that's all you know, that you're a victim. That's it. And is that going to change in 2024? We're starting to see more Black people say, wait a minute, man. You know what? The truth of the matter is I'm more conservative than I thought. So how did we fix it? I mean, I'm not saying you have the answer, but you have some suggestions. I know you said something already. I try to do that for some of my relatives who are younger, who just get into the workforce. If I get my hands on them, I'm saying, okay, this is what you should do with your money, especially if you're still living at home. Right? So
I've got suggestions.
Go ahead, Ray.
Okay, so the hard one, which is a community-based one, since everybody wants to talk about this Black community that doesn't exist, it would be a Pan-American Saturday school. The Jamaicans did it in Europe when they were undereducating them. They just go to school a 6th day to make sure that they're not stupid. And they outperform, by and large, most of the populace that doesn't like them. That's one thing that works. Historical data. Another thing that would work is something along the lines of what Grant said, which is when you have a new person born into a family, you start them an investment account. Now what you do is you take them at 10, somewhere between 8 and 10, and you have them start managing it. You teach them financial literacy. Within a generation, that generation of kids will be fine, and they'll replicate it with their kids. Problem solved. Like, that would actually solve the problem if everybody did that, even if it just got up to a few $100. If you ain't got money, put $5 in there a month. Something. Over the years, by the time he gets 10, there's something to work with there, and you can start teaching them.
I don't even think that's something that's even far-fetched either, Reckless.
It's not far-fetched.
It's not far-fetched, but you know what I have a problem with people, and I'm kind of like on the same boat with you when it comes down to this whole thing of Black community. Because I don't see it. I don't actually see it. So my whole thing is that if we're going to start something, we have to start it with our children. We got to start it with the youngest ones that's out there. What you just said, that's basic shit that we should be doing. People, they want their own, they're like, what do I get out of it myself, right? Instead of saying, how do I contribute to the next generation and the generation that goes on? And that's what I see, where if we're going to call ourselves any type of community, right, we have to do something that is to the point where it does contribute to the community. That's why I'm one of the ones to say, I don't see Black community. I see Black people. I see, people that call themselves Black or whatever. Even when it comes down to the word Black, I'll just be like, damn, from what I learned, I'm like, we shouldn't even be calling ourselves Black.
Exactly. Exactly that. Exactly that.
I think the re-education part of it, but we can start. It's easier with the children than it would ever be with the oldest ones. We are where we are. I'm 51 years old, so I'm pretty much where I'm at right here. I can get a little bit better, but man, I got more yesterdays than I got tomorrows. So and I'm already there. You know what I'm saying? I'm there, and I have children. So my whole thing is that I think I'd rather to contribute to them and my grandson, and my nieces and nephews and things like that. And that'll be a great way of doing it. Get rid of fucking Christmas. That's what we need to do. And the money
let me tell you this. Let's go on this, right? We all have families, right? How hard is it for you to go and convince a family member to actually start to change their financial literacy?
Yes.
And save money and invest money, right? I mean, how I'm not saying don't do it. Have you, there's a certain amount of resistance to that. I know I faced it, right? Just recently, go ahead, you shaking your head, Glenn. Go ahead.
No, I wasn't disagreeing. I wasn't disagreeing with you. Just sort of thinking through.
So my niece, she called me up because she just got a job, right? And she said, she called me Uncle Rich. What should I do with my money, right? Because I talked to my brother. This is his daughter. And I said, well, let me talk to her because I have my daughter set up. I can set her up just like they are. So she calls me up and we did a few Zoom calls. And she was eager to learn something. Now, I'm not a financial planner, but I know the basics. You know what I'm saying? So, so I'm trying to get to a lot more of my cousins and stuff like that, or younger ones, to say, okay, just starting out. Here's what you should be doing. For you got some young kids, they got social security numbers. How much money are you saving for them already? Right? And don't have to be a lot. Just open it up. Like you said, Ray, $50, $100, because they don't ask for it. All these damn brokerage houses, you can open up an account. They say minimum 50 or $100 a month.
Well, no, pain. But that's what I'm saying. I'm like, I don't worry about anybody else. When I choose to influence something, I go, you're gonna do this by me. You want this money? You're gonna come sit down with me one day a week, and you're gonna start managing this account. And then at a certain point, after you've proven yourself, I will hand this money over to you. I'm not asking.
So you open it up for them yourself, or you have their family?
100%. I'll do it myself. I'll do it myself. I'm like, when they put that baby out there, I'm like, cool. I'll start putting some money aside. I'll start setting a little crypto aside. And I go, cool. When that kid gets to about 8, I'll be like, look, I got this for you, but you're going to have to come learn this. I don't care what your parents are doing. I don't care what they say. Them's dead bodies. I might be able to help you. And if you don't want to do it, or they want to fumble the bag for you, so be it. I'll keep the money myself. I don't care.
You saw easy money, so you can't. And I agree, you can't save your way out of poverty, but you can invest your way out of it, though.
Yeah, he says that, like, okay, my net worth increased $80,000 since 2022. Over 2022 into 2023, 80 grand. So anyways, like I said, I'm pulling somebody's salary and increasing my net worth. You're right, I'm not saving it in a bank account. Like, you might not be able to save dollars in a bank account to get wealthy, but you can definitely make some investment decisions that play out. Numbers are numbers. Like no, like I don't know.
I'm hoping he's making that distinction instead of making a blanket statement.
He's not making. He's trolling. He's trolling.
I would just say, I mean, I think Easy. I think I've seen you in a couple of these. I think you're always bringing, I think, great information. I don't think anyone's speaking about the individual. Obviously, we're talking about individuals. What you want to do is create an army of people who have a basic function or feature of that.
Yeah.
And the more people that you can land with that feature, correct, understanding savings, understanding mechanisms of economies, potentially you can come up with different things. So we can use the example of saying, if twerking became a currency, correct, that didn't do anything, correct? We would all agree that that would be bad for us, generally speaking. And so we already see certain behaviors just easily become part of us culturally. Fingers crossed.
Okay.
But why not have a more useful cultural feature, correct? Why not begin to sort of inculcate people with ideas that are actually useful to them instead of ideas that are not useful? And so I think there's a moment in which we have to at least say to ourselves, it's better to swing at the ball than to stare at it in baseball, correct? Like you could strike out. We can all end up dead and in the grave and still broke. But you might as well just give up today, because if the end result is just we're all going to just die black and poor, then why fight? And I would just say I reject the cynicism of that, because I don't think there are enough things in this world that we have access to that doesn't put us in, the billionaire state. But it would be nice to be comfortable. I think as a group of people, if we can be, and I think that's at least an argument that I think we can at least have. That doesn't say that we're sort of glossing over what I think are obviously some structural problems within America, but those structural problems exist, and yet people are succeeding even within those structural problems of capitalism. Let's take away the race component. And so I just want to be mindful of the fact that being fatalist is far more deadly, correct, than anything you can ever believe that white people supposedly are doing to us or the system is doing to us.
I agree with that.
Well, I'm like, easy makes an order of magnitude more money than I do too. That's the thing that I don't understand. I'm like, I get it. Does it contribute? Probably not, because somebody's going to read that dumb comment and then they're going to get influenced by that. Good job not helping black people.
Get your ass up here, man. Why don't you just get your ass up here instead of trolling from the just?
He's trolling.
I swear.
He's trolling.
Hey, easy. The funny thing is, you can read below a 6th grade level and figure out, if you're good at math, you can figure out the stock market. Like we live in a country where you can be stupid and make money. I'm a perfect example. I'm not smart. I understand how systems work, and that's just the way that my brain functions. I'm literally only good at a handful of stuff.
But it's more. Sorry, go ahead, Ray. I didn't mean to talk.
But I mean, the thing is, are you smart at things that matter? That's what matters. What game are we playing? Are you good at capitalism? Are you good at the game that's laid out? Because right now, everyone doesn't have to be a rocket science in America to be wealthy. There's a lot of real dumb people that are wealthy. Unfortunately, within our community, we look at dumb athletes or dumb rappers or dumb actors or dumb comedians. And we think those are the only things that we can do because we don't, and I understand that we shouldn't be heralding every billionaire, but per looking and getting to see an example, I think we should. But I think it should be billionaires that are billionaires actually owning infrastructural things that are besides the 5 jobs that they've given us that we get to excel at, because we are commodities in those positions. They sold us the narrative that the only way that we can win is to be a commodity for them. Think about that. That in and of itself is insane.
To address, go ahead, JT.
No, that's why when I look at people and see what it is that they accomplish on a day-to-day basis, sometimes I do be like, man, what the fuck am I doing with my life? It's like you see somebody doing something before 9 a.m. than most people can do all damn day, right? You will see somebody that's just, they have the ambition to, and they may not be, most people, I mean, they may not be good in math, and they may be good in reading. They may not be good in reading, but they're good in math, or they know how certain parts move, especially when you talk about somebody that know how to move money, dog. Damn somebody that just know how to make it. I'm talking about somebody that knows how to move money. It does get me to a point where I be like, damn, I get inspired to that type of shit, because they're doing something that actually makes things go around. You know what I'm saying? So when we're talking about when we're talking about and going back, and I'm gonna go back around to this whole thing of reparations. The more we talk about it, the more I'm like, no, I'm kind of like against it. I'm a little bit against it because we just seen a little snippet of it during COVID. And we seen what it did. Right now, you have businesses that's going out of business because they can't find any employees. That's crazy. It used to be a time where people couldn't find, black folks would say, I can't find jobs, I can't find work. Now it's people that are owning businesses saying, I can't find any employees. That's crazy right now. So I just look at this as being a reset anyway. You know what I'm saying? So yeah,
All right, easy money.
So JT, just to answer your question, and then I'll get into my soliloquy. Do you know why the businesses were struggling to hire?
No, go ahead and tell me. But I want you to tell me.
Raise the minimum wage, man.
So number one, yeah, you basically those COVID payments made it so that you couldn't just treat people like shit and expect them to show up for $7 an hour. The game had been raised, and there were employers who got ahead of the curve and raised wages in the midst of the pandemic, and they were able to kind of capitalize on that and get a different quality of candidate. And so, being somebody who was doing some hiring around that time, it wasn't until we started offering like bonuses and other things like that we started to see more people kind of trickle in. And even then, the quality of people we were getting at the dollar amount that we were trying to push, we weren't getting that quality. So yeah, the game had changed essentially, and a lot of people weren't catching up to it.
Right. That's what I said. It's a reset right now. So I understand exactly what you mean by that. I mean, why would you go and work at Burger King or McDonald's when you can actually drive for them? And you can make, anywhere with the equivalence of $20, $22 an hour, of $25 an hour. All depends on what your hustle is. Like you can actually have control of how much money that you make. So I understand exactly what that is. Even when it comes down to the medical field, you have people that were couriers, right? Now you have Amazon being a courier. That Amazon is tearing all these businesses up because they're doing all kind of stuff now. They go from where they don't even you don't even have to work directly from through Amazon anymore. You can work through Uber Eats and you can deliver for Amazon. This is how crazy it done got. But that reset right now it gets to a point where it's still, you have people that had business. I'm talking about corporations they have to shut down most of their stores because they can't find people because, let's say that it is the wages. But this is the craziest part about that. Don't you have to be, for instance, if you work for McDonald's, wouldn't you have to now learn how to be a manager, period? Because they got less people. You got 3 people doing 9 people's jobs now. It evens itself out. Instead of you having 15 employees a day, now you have 7 employees a day. So I get what you're saying, but it still is not evening out. It still is at a point right now where it's still a reset. You don't see, I don't know where you're at, but I can tell you right now, Burger King is damn near gone. Over
Why is Burger King gone? I guess I'm not following.
Lack of employees, bad distribution. Like, have you been to a Burger King recently?
No, I don't. Yeah,
they struggle. They struggle.
They don't have anybody in there. They can't
even stay open because they don't. I went to one and they said that they don't have any food, and I'm like, why are you open?
Yeah, they just closed a couple in Queens. But somebody was just telling me they just closed a couple of Burger Kings in Queens.
I mean, why? I mean, the good thing. I mean, I think we're being destroyed by those companies. Why don't they go out? They should go out of business. At some
reset.
Point
that's why I call it a reset. Yes, that's why I say it's a reset.
I honestly don't see a problem with that. Just like COVID destroyed China.
Right.
Well, I mean, there's not a problem. It's capitalism. It's like you can't find employees. The issue is, as we drive this minimum wage up, between AI and this minimum wage going up, like I went to Buffalo Wild Wings this weekend. They're getting ready to get rid of everyone. You go in there now, you scan a QR code. They want you to do everything from your phone, at the table, and the only interaction you have with anyone there is when they bring you your stuff. And they just rolled it out, and that's one step away from going cool. We just need someone to put the stuff on the tray, and the robot can roll it out there. And the thing is, the people that are working there don't get it. They do not understand. Like, they're too stupid to understand how things work. I'm like, do you not see that, like, if all you got to do, if your only interaction with me is you bringing me this, your job's gone. Yes. They're just trying to get this sorted out so that they can get something that rolls to this table, and someone will put the drink on the tray.
Yep. That's it. And they have kiosks now, and almost all the McDonald's have kiosks. So when you go in there, you ain't even talking to nobody at the counter anymore. You're on a kiosk, or you just ordering it from your phone. So yeah, it's a big reset, man. I get what you said too, Grant. Like, it's like shit. We feed enough. We got too many damn fat ass people that's dying at 45 years old because it's just this is crazy.
It's not so much of a reset in that way, but you just have to follow the money. So if you think about a company like Burger King, right? At one point, Burger King was publicly traded company, stock, all of that. For the last 20 years or so, it's been owned by different hedge funds. So basically what happens is you got these companies that come in, they get free money to buy these companies in a leveraged buyout where they don't put any money up. It's all loans. They strip all the assets out and then resell it and make a profit. So they continue to do this and pass the buck down the road to now where it's basically a shell of itself. Same thing with Toys R Us, same thing with Staples, same thing with all these other companies. Like, the companies didn't go under because the business evolved in Amazon and all of that. Basically, these hedge funds strip all the profits and wealth out of a company and leave it to die. So it has nothing to do with the business landscape.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think one of the things we miss when we talk about these things, and I think he alluded to it about the sixth grade reading level. I do think there are features of our community that I think we have to say out loud, is that if you can't read, even at a sixth grade level, it isn't about reading. It's whether or not you have enough logic skills, correct? Whether or not you've built up the ability to sort of think through complex problems. And so when you show up in your adult life, you have to be able to both, number one, communicate with people effectively, and number two, you need to be able to assess the world around you and quickly make decisions. And what I often see, and I think this is sort of something that I think we have to be honest about, when you see young African-American boys who almost like frequently sort of react in violence or anger, like immediately, there's no moderator there, correct? It's because they're lacking the sort of emotional ability to sort of deal with their lack of reading abilities or communicative skills. And so this turns into the rage. So they become completely antisocial. And this is a problem. Now, I think some people may say, well, that's just, being harsh towards Black people. I will make this clear. These problems don't come along with our color, correct? They come along with features of not addressing those problems early on. Similarly, that if you can raise a generation of white people who hate Black people for no reason, it didn't come out of them being white. It came out of them being taught that. So if you can teach white kids to hate Black people, you can teach Black people to hate themselves. And it could just be Black people. The matter of fact, we spend more time calling ourselves nappy-headed and using sort of derogatory terms. By the time we become adults, we start screaming at Black women for wearing wigs. Well, if you spend the first 18 years calling them nappy-headed, what would you think they're going to do when they get of age to start making decisions? They're going to view their skin color, they're going to view their features, they're going to view themselves as being inadequate. And so you begin to sort of see the features, of parts of African-American community that are harmed by certain things. And again, I'm not excusing behavior. I'm just pointing out that sometimes we have to be realistic about what are the foundational things we're giving young people who then further on in life become the sort of drag on, I think, the Black community at large.
I got you. It makes sense. Hot sauce, how you doing? What's going on?
Hey gentlemen, how are you? Just thought I'd
All right.
chime in a little bit. Hope everybody's doing well. I guess
Yeah.
this evening for you guys.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Yeah. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
I want to give a little bit of pushback.
On which
When we're
part?
talking about the black community and why we have certain existence. Um, like when we're talking about America, when we're talking about white supremacy and we're talking about systemic white supremacy, you know, everyone practices it and everyone's taught it, right? We're taught it at very young ages. We're taught it through media, we're taught it through school, we're taught it through our parents, et cetera, right? So while I'm not excusing the can't read at beyond a sixth grade reading level for black boys, there are white supremacy factors of why that is.
Can you please
Okay.
elaborate on what in 2024 is white? What's
Wait,
what was
let him explain. Let him
yeah?
explain. How
Oh,
can you
modern time.
give us a direct? Show
Hey,
me how.
hey, RP, really quick. Can I just clarify that stat because it's one that I threw out. That's all Americans, so that's not just Black Americans. I just want to clarify that.
Okay.
Yeah, but okay, but the point of reference or or the spirit of what I'm talking about is that black boys underperform against all other racial groups and all other genders.
At what?
And when we're talking about academics, right? When
Yeah.
we're
Well,
talking
there's
about
Okay,
reasons for that.
so hold on,
right, so no. I mean,
question.
come on, you
Well,
gotta
no,
let
no,
me
no, no,
land
no,
my
no, 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 no,
plane.
no, 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 no. Hold on, let me
No,
say something.
We're not.
Could I ask you a
Whoa,
question?
we're not doing that. We're not doing that. We're not
Records.
doing that.
Let him say what he got to say fully.
Yeah,
Then
you can't. We're not going to stop me every couple seconds without letting me
go
get
ahead, man. So what you got to get it out, man. Get it out. Get it out.
Well, I mean, how can I get
I'm
it
sorry.
out when
I thought you were
everybody's
done.
like every three
All right.
words,
Okay. You got an opportunity to get it out now, brother.
Go ahead.
right? So when we're looking at that, there's factors there, right?
Mhm.
There's factors and why I'm not saying this is the only reason why, but there's factors there. One of the factors is the value system that we learned through the plantation of not having a two-parent household, right?
Okay.
That's one of the factors there,
Mhm.
right? That's going to spill over to value of education.
Mhm.
So that's one.
So when I asked you why does that matter? Because the game that we're playing, because I am not an academic, I'm not that bright, and I'm being honest about that.
Mhm.
Like I got beat through school by my single parent mother who was a detective and could work me
Mhm.
over until I was about 15. So I'm not smart. I
Mhm.
probably employ more people than you though. We don't live in a system.
Probably not. Probably not.
Do you
Probably.
own your company?
I own two companies, one in Kenya and
Okay,
one in
bet.
China.
Okay. So here. Okay, then I
So
stand
probably
corrected.
not.
I'll give you that. But do you own your company?
Yes, I do. I just told you I own two Wolfie companies,
Understand
one in
the
Shanghai, China, and one in Kenya.
two roofing companies?
Wolfie, fully wholly owned foreign entities. Sorry, that's what it means. Wolfies.
Okay. Gotcha. See, you're smarter than me. That's fine. My question is okay. So in America, you don't have to be smart to own a company. Like, I'm just letting you know. So so my company is in home automation. I am one of the leading restaurant vendors in the Midwest region. So that's
Okay,
what we do. We
fantastic.
carry some weight in that, which is the automation system, the only one that's allowed in government buildings, just so like for reference. Like it's a 100-pound
Mhm.
gorilla. It's the best of the best for what we do. I am good at that. I am not an academic. I did not get straight A's. And I'm not saying that obviously the anomaly reinforces the rule. It does not break the rule. But what I'm saying is when we talk about these kids and go, okay, these kids are kind of dumb. We are in a system where you can excel still and do better than most people. Because when we talk about metrics, like now that we've gotten out of the educational system, which I wasn't good at, I do excel past most white people as far as like net worth, average income, stuff like that. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I get it that the kids aren't that bright, but I'm going, we need to be focused on things that matter. Financial literacy isn't even taught in school. Critical thinking is no longer taught in school. Are you going to interrupt me every 3 words, sir?
I haven't interrupted you every 3 words. I haven't.
You just did. I respected you, and I stopped when you asked.
Okay, continue.
Thank you. Critical thinking is not taught in school. Financial education, writ large, is not taught in school. The schooling system and that metric in and of itself for the game that you're playing, they're releasing everyone crippled. And that's regardless of what school you go to, because they're not doing it in the rich kid schools either. It's one of those things where I defer back to, we have to get involved with these kids. And I would be down for a Pan-American Saturday school where we literally just taught those things, because even if they got F's and they could read well enough and they knew finances, they would excel in life. Because we build life around school, and we're producing college graduates to where Google and all of these companies are rolling back. They're like, these people are freaking stupid with a piece of paper that says they're smart. But at life, they can't function.
Reckless, before we go any further, though, you made a point about the Saturdays. And I did a video on the I Promise School, right? And the failure for these kids to be able to read and do math at the proper level. And to me, it's because all the administrators and everybody in the line failed the students, and the parents of those students failed them as well, because they obviously weren't studying. And so, since these people are going to a special school, one of my solutions was mandate them at least 3 days a week to stay after school to do their homework, and then have a Saturday class for those who fall apart, and then take tests on a regular basis to see if they're learning anything. Because it's just clear to me, once they go home, they ain't doing shit. They ain't working on nobody's monitoring them. And,
100%. 100%. And there's no
data. It's so easy to fix, because this school was primarily built for kids who don't have the infrastructure at home. So if they don't have it at home, how could you not provide that shit? You can't just provide a regular classroom with new computers if you don't give them some kind of extra something. You want to go to the school, your school hours are not just from 9 to 3. You're staying here to 6 o'clock. We might feed you. We will feed you, but just staying here until your work is done.
Arcane, is that a charter school?
So can I reply or no?
No. I will let you reply. Go ahead. But see, this is what I'm saying, because it's not just white supremacy. I hate when we use that, because it's like a blanket. I'm gonna let you reply after this. I'm gonna let you reply after this. Did you ever see that video of that 800-pound fucking woman who says she's fat because of white supremacy?
Yeah. That's ridiculous.
Okay, so go ahead. You go ahead. Go ahead, man. Go ahead.
Right. So I mean, look, guys. I hope we can have a conversation where we can listen to each other, where as opposed to just hearing what we want. I did not say it's solely based on white supremacy. I just said white supremacy plays a role in it. I'm not saying it's the only reason why, right?
But I'm trying to see, where does that play a role? Tell me exactly where it plays the role, though.
So I just explained it to you. One of the ways that it plays a role is our value and education system, and why education is important. One of the reasons why education is important, because 90% of the globe will work for someone. I can't use my personal situation and then superimpose it on everyone else. 90% of the globe, 90% of working population will work for someone. In America and all first world nations, right? One of the ways you get a job is through education. Education is a gatekeeper. 90% of all people who get a job is through. Please let me finish. 90% of all people, 80% of all people who get a job will be through referrals, right? Before I had my companies, right? I worked through my alumni network. Even over here, right, overseas, I work through my alumni network, right? Because through your alumni network and through friends and relationships, you get business opportunities, right?
Facts.
You can't apply. Positions are not really on these job boards, et cetera, right?
Mhm.
So education, especially a blue chip education, is going to give you access to those opportunities, right?
So the fact that
Also,
all the education is not blue chip is white supremacy is the part that whites are holding us back from.
say again, please.
I just want to kind of pinpoint exactly where the whites come in and make
Well,
sure.
okay. So we're okay. Let me break it down to you this way, right?
Yeah.
So when we're talking about white supremacy, and as a factor, not the sole factor, is number one, value of education. Number two, access to, let's say, top 50, top 100 universities.
Teresa.
Uh Number three, yeah. So we'll just start with those two, and then I explained to those why those two is very pivotal, and then also, when we're talking about finances and access to capital to building businesses, right?
Mm.
Right, you can get a $30,000 loan for a car, but it's harder for you to get a $30,000 loan for a small business. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying it's harder,
Oh,
right?
no. I agree
And
with
and you know, and I believe it's the University of Michigan have multiple researches and papers on this, right? Keeping blacks out of access to capital for small businesses. And I'll
you.
land there. I'll land there.
You got
Okay.
something, Grant?
Well,
Easy.
Yeah. So I mean,
Oh, you go ahead, Grant. I'm sorry.
uh, my apologies. I mean, I think one of the struggles today is I think we're sort of jargon laden and sort of we spend a lot of time using words like white supremacy. It's
Mhm.
it includes everything and excludes everything at the same time, and and so the problem when we do that is it's hard to sort of pinpoint the problem. So just say we look at data, correct? So let's say the life expectancy in the United States, it's high compared to the rest to most of the world, but not to European countries. But if you look at different pockets, correct, there's certain groups that obviously leave this earth earlier than some of what we consider third world countries. And so the point I'm making there is oftentimes we use white supremacy that all of the sort of poor outcomes for African Americans are exclusively or not, that they have something to do with white supremacy. When you have a whole host of things in which African Americans succeed. And why doesn't the white supremacy just hold everyone down? And why is it selecting certain black people to do well? And even furthermore, why doesn't white supremacy work that well on Nigerians per se or Jamaicans? Correct? They seem to sort of forget that they're black and just say, go ahead and make more money than us and go get a better education than me. That supremacy just doesn't map equally to all people who have extra melanin in their skin. It almost exclusively happens to people who are at the bottom. And what's even weirder is that white supremacy somehow still produces bad outcomes in predominantly white states. So let's take West Virginia. White Virginia looks almost like a whole ghetto, that it should be only black people there. But when you look at the data in West Virginia, you'll find out that there are no black people there, but like 2%. And there aren't any Hispanics there. So is white supremacy causing West Virginia to have bad outcomes? Probably not. Are there features of capitalism and features of how we structure ourselves and how we look at the problems within these micro communities, states, and even more locally that are creating some of these problems? The answer would be yes. It's easy to sort of use white supremacy as this sort of hammer blow. But once you just say those words, all the hard work is still ahead of you. You still have to dig into the data and to find the pockets of where you're going to sort of fix those issues. And you seem extraordinarily bright. And obviously, I think Ray said it well. You clearly are smarter than at least me. And so I just think that part of what the African American experience has been is that we've been sloganeering our way through life. The hard parts of our life now is dealing through data. And how do we take critical information that says what makes someone successful? And let's just say we could apply white supremacy to as a percentage. Let's say white supremacy accounts for 30% of the problems in an African American community. I'll grant you that. But we still have 70% that at least we, as African Americans, should be able to control. So it isn't a question of whether or not we can control supremacy, because we've already said that it's supreme. By its definition, you say that that apparatus will stay in place. Either you're going to have to completely upend the apparatus, which is unlikely given our lack of power. And so you have to be able to assign that there's 30% of that as white supremacy. And then the other 70% is due to some other factor. So how do you address the factors in which African Americans can have some quantifiable, action towards and can change? Or we're going to be in the spin cycle of saying white supremacy, white supremacy. And I don't disagree with the notion of white supremacy existing. I don't disagree with the notion of white supremacy doesn't have some feature that holds some African Americans back. But you can't undo the apparatus tomorrow and then say, well, black people now we're somewhere, because you're kind of stuck with the.
So let me cut in real quick, Grant, before anybody goes. And that was one of my premises when I was going over the 160 years that blacks spent after the Emancipation Proclamation under the most oppressive regimes. And here we are standing here in 2024, and we got plenty of successful people. How did that happen? In the face of white supremacy and everything else. How did that happen? And we don't focus on that enough, because, and Sauce, this is Hot Sauce, this is not to get on you, because we do this a lot. We talk about the least of these when I have a circle of friends, I'm going to digress, that they're all making high six figures, they're doing well. And every so often, a guy would go into woe is me mode. And I say, well, how the hell are you going to be woe? You're making more than the majority of white people in this country. 4, 5, 6 times. How does that happen? What are you talking about? You some kind of victim? What do you mean? And I never get a good answer for that shit. So
I can give you a good answer.
I'm not saying ignore the bad stuff, but nobody really talks about how did we get in a short 160 years, 8 generations, to where we have the most millionaires, not billionaires, most millionaires combined in everybody in the world. How did that happen?
Well, I want to. That's okay. Anyway, I just want to say this. I am not saying that. Okay, just toss it up to white supremacy. There's a bunch of factors there, and I actually agree with Grant when we're talking about 30%. Because again, I want to say that it's there, but I just think it's dangerous because I'm going to say I'm assuming that everyone here is hyper successful, and the problem I have with people like us is that kind of I made it, so you made it, right? There's a lot of let me speak for myself. There was a lot of luck to how I got to where I got to, right? There was a lot of, if I haven't met the right people at the right time, I wouldn't get there. For example, undergraduate, I went to Wharton. If I never met one of the women who got me into Wharton, because she's a Penn graduate, I would have never went there. For graduate school, I went to Harvard, right? There was hard work, of course, but there was circumstances that helped me get there. I spent 19 years abroad. I built I worked 15 years abroad, then built 2 companies in 2 foreign countries, right? But I'm still not going to sit here and say, well, and I'm from the hood. I'm from one of the most dangerous areas there. But I'm still not going to sit here and say, hey, if I did it, you can do it. There's a lot of context and certain circumstances that I benefit in just by being there. That's
Hot sauce. I agree with you, and I'm cutting you off a little bit. But before you go on, what you call luck is diminishing your accomplishments. I mean, some of those things, it was just you was just prepared to recognize an opportunity when you saw it. I don't know if that's luck.
No, Hot Sauce right. It is luck.
What I'm saying to you, I am not saying I did not work hard. I did, but I'm just saying certain things just kind of worked out because of circumstances.
Yeah, I
I'm
agree
telling
with that.
you.
I agree with
Yeah,
that
Right?
too.
So that's all I'm saying. All
Okay.
I'm saying is that
But when you
yes,
call
we
it
want.
luck, you're diminishing it though. When you call it luck,
No,
No,
he's
you
not.
gotta,
because it's
yes,
the
it
truth.
does,
No,
easy.
but
I was
No,
like,
it
well, who's
doesn't, because I say the same thing. Yeah, I got
It's
lucky.
the truth.
easy.
Look,
Luck is preparation meets opportunity.
who
That's
does
all luck is.
anyone.
That's not how that works, though, Ray.
Guys.
It is.
Anyone who has operated a business more than 5 years, you all have a story about how something just came up that you were just lucky. Everyone, right?
Preparation meets
for the
opportunity.
microcosm, but not
And
for
it doesn't discredit your hard work, but sometimes it's just situational.
Well, but
Right.
hot sauce. The issue is when we have these discussions, people throw luck out there to disprove or diminish another person's argument. We're just trying to give you your roses, bro. I'm proud of you.
I hear that.
I'm proud of your success and I'm happy for it. And I
Right,
agree
but
with you. There are certain circumstances, but when we sit here and we have this conversation about white supremacy, I've got out of my clientele, the reason I got into this industry out of the mental health field, where I was previously for 6 years. The reason I got into this field 11 years ago was for access to wealthy people. I ended up getting access to a bunch of wealthy people that didn't look like me. My mentorship circle right now only has one person who's a millionaire that looks like me. And that's the first black person I've ever encountered that did not try to hinder my progress in life. Period. And the only one. So I've got 6 white dudes and 1 Jewish guy that are helping me get to where I'm going. And you're telling me that apparently there's some cabal of white, and I agree with you.
But before we go down that path, Tarus, welcome aboard. I want to have you have something to say on this topic.
Yeah,
but I shouldn't have said it. I shouldn't have said it that way. What did you have on the topic?
What's up, Tarus?
Hey, what's up? Ray, Grant, JT, Payne, Hot Sauce, Easy Money. How y'all guys doing this evening?
What's going on, Tarus?
What's going on, bro?
So, I think most of you guys know I am pro reparations in general. Grant, you had made an argument when you had brought up Appalachia, specifically West Virginia. That's one of the most intellectually great logical arguments I heard. Here's the counter to that. I can make the argument that the decline of specifically West Virginia is a great argument for reparations, because look what happens when you just take a skill set away from a community and expect them to figure it out.
Yep.
Because what we have to remember, our ancestors' labor was used to fund the U.S. Army's slaughter of the indigenous tribes here in America, right? Our labor was used for the GDP when it comes to agriculture, tobacco, cotton, all of these different industries, and we didn't get a dime of that. Remember, part of the U.S. government, they used funding from slave labor to pass those Homestead Acts, which allowed newly European immigrants to go out there and settle land, and whatever land they claim, if they can hold it down, congratulations, that was theirs. We're the only demographic, Grant, that was left out of that option. So a lot of times when I'm arguing for reparations, I'm arguing from a standpoint of it needs to be more like a business opportunity, because just like there were plenty of white Americans or Europeans who didn't take advantage of the Homestead Act, right? They was comfortable on the East Coast. They didn't try to move out west. Some of them that moved out west, they didn't make it, right? There were some people made it, some people didn't. And guess what? If you didn't take that opportunity, you didn't just get free land. And so when I argue from reparations, I argue from the standpoint of let it be a business opportunity, right? You'll have your qualifications, like who can actually trace their ancestry back. To Payne's point, I think there should be an income cap. Like if you're a Black American who absolutely is in the 1%, hey, you figured it out.
You got yours.
Pause. Tarus, I was rocking with you until you said that part, because I'm absolutely
the reason why is because we all know that a blanket reparations bill is never going to pass. There's going to be criteria points that needs to hit. And
Yeah,
I
I
say that
understand
as
that.
a Hassas, I say that as a person who goes, if I don't qualify for it, that's fine as long as the majority of my fellow Black Americans do.
Well,
Hey, did
that's
you read
your
those
benevolent
reports,
self. So fuck
Tyrus? Did
that.
you read those California reports? I'm sorry,
Yeah,
Hot Sauce. Okay, all right. Just go ahead.
yeah.
Well,
Continue.
see, but no. Because the thing about it is that on top of that, there's a lot of pain, anguish, and mental suffrage that has gone on as being a ADOS person as well, right? And I need to get paid for that, right?
But
Y'all don't need to get
you
paid for
telling me
that.
they hurt you,
I
hot
need to
sauce?
get paid for that,
Oh Lord.
right?
Oh Lord.
But that's an
Hot
extraordinary.
hot sauce.
But that's an
Have you?
extraordinary claim. That's a, that's
Mhm.
How
is
could
that.
you even quantify that?
Yeah. Are you talking, Ray? I don't know if I talked over you. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead, Grant. I want to hear you talk because I'll go after you because you're gonna have a more intelligent argument than I and I want to
I appreciate the vote of confidence. I think so. When you say like the anguish and things like that, they're
Mm-hmm.
just we know that they're not quantifiable. As I think a
Mm-hmm.
panel of what I would imagine, what I think,
Mm-hmm.
and humbly that this is a panel of really smart Black men.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that everyone here can deal in data. We can understand what is quantifiable and what is not quantifiable. And then when you sort of map this out further, if the argument can be so not sort of you can't sort of quantify it. Ultimately, anyone can make that claim, correct? I can then claim if I'm not African American that I'm harmed, that I'm not African American enough, and therefore the harm of not having been African American enough to get this is I should be getting reparations because therefore I feel left out of this, and so you can just sort of it becomes an infinite regress, and I think the problem.
We do have factors that we can say, like for example, right, the relationship with Black men and police, right, that deserve reparations. UN categorized it. I can't remember the date, right? How literally America is a terrorist state to African Americans as a whole, as abroad, right? So when we're talking about how we quantify, and in second, and well, the third point I want to say is this, right? I'm going to reject your imaginary constraints because you're saying, well, okay, well, obviously we're going to have this constraint, that constraint. No, those things are not obvious, right? Because there's other people who's already doing the work in reparations. For example, I will point to Sandy Darity, right? I believe a Brown statistician, right, professor at MIT. He actually mapped out a plan for all African Americans who are descendants of slaves, regardless of economic issue, on how to pay for it and what are the requirements. I will point you to that, right? And it doesn't have a category of income level, right? So when we're sitting here, we're making those constraints. Those constraints are to your own opinion, but I would point to people like Sandy Darity, who actually talked about this, and it's another economist as well that I can't remember, but he's an MIT professor, right, that actually talks about reparations, what it will look like, what is the payout for that.
Right, but we got to remember. First off, I want to be clear. It was just my personal opinion with the income
Yeah,
qualification.
that's what I'm saying. I'm just rejecting that.
That was I brought it up. But hot sauce. To be fair, we got to remember that even if we get to the point where we can get some sort of agreement that it does need to be passed, there's going to be qualifications. There's going to be criteria measures that's going to pop up, whether we like it or not.
Well, I mean,
And so
we don't know what they are, though, right? We don't know what they are.
Right. Well, and we don't know what they are. So I'll stick to the more broad pro or anti reparations. And so again, I think it's definitely I'm pro reparations. I just think we need to make sure we formulate this not from a standpoint of obligation and tradition, and more of a standpoint of business opportunity. Just like the Homestead Act, there was a lot of people who did not take advantage of it. That needs to be the same thing with reparations. Hey, if you opt in, here's the criteria. If you don't, hey.
But see, I find that a little bit. I find that a little bit novel. I'll say that because when we look at the Mau Mau in Kenya when they got reparations from the UK, right? They just got it because of the atrocities that happened in the past. When we look at the small hat people, right? They got it because of the atrocities of the past. When we look at certain Indian tribes, they got it for the atrocity of the past. It wasn't framed as a okay, some of you can get it based on some type of alphabet soup kind of thing like FDR does, like some kind of
But
alphabet
Right, but
soup
hot sauce. The difference is
where it's like a
those groups
government
that got
institution
reparations were more
institutions.
ethnically homogenous than any Black American would be in today's world. You got to
Well,
remember,
well,
part of the
it's
problem is
also
we are
it's also
mixed the hell up.
it's
no,
not
no,
only
but
that, they also
it
didn't get
doesn't.
reparations from America. They got reparations from Britain. They're the
Right.
nicer version of who's here. We got
No,
criminals and dissenters. Like they're not going to give us anything.
the state of Israel does get reparations annually from America, though.
No, yeah, because of our war alliance, but the land that they got was not like we've been
That's right.
funding them to defend themselves as they invaded and took those people's stuff. But Britain was the one who placed them and gave them the land and gave them the initial amount of money. They gave them money here,
Yep.
and I mean, if we
And
really want to jump down that,
and American weapons.
100%, 100%. And I mean, if you really want to jump down that rabbit hole, you're talking about white supremacy. There's no such thing as white supremacy because white people didn't even own you, bro. That's not who brought you here. Do your research. Find out why the slave trade was closed on the Sabbath, and then get back to me.
Yeah.
Let's not go down a rabbit hole there.
Like I'm just saying, but no, I agree with you. But like my pushback for you about the your feelings is this is from a mental health perspective because like I've dealt with this my whole life because like I can't even relate to that statement. But the one thing that I was going to say to you, and it's a very lowbrow statement, and it's just because of how I grew up. So you're going to have to bear with me. I'm not as intelligent as you are.
So hot
But
sauce, I'm gonna push back on you because I hate to be that guy who thinks that my idea is better, but we live in a capitalist country, so feelings isn't going to cut it. We are talking about having to cut bread with white people, right? So
Right.
that's why it needs to come down from a standpoint of opportunity. Here's how I always frame it, hot sauce.
Hey, Tyrus,
Yeah.
before you finish, hot sauce, were you talking about Christian Mullen? Was that the other person that you was talking about that as far from MIT?
No. She's not from MIT. I can't remember her name, but it's Sandy Dirty and a Black woman. I cannot remember her name, but she's also an economist. If you just type in Sandy Dirty MIT economist talks about reparations, you'll quick Google search, you'll find it.
Yeah, they had a Christian Mullen that was with William Doherty.
Yeah.
It could be somebody else. I just did a quick search on it, but
yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, but they actually mapped out, right? So they actually mapped out. So I want to make 2 points. When I talked about mental anguish stuff like that, I'm actually pointing to a
you
UN
get back
study,
in,
right?
Tyrus.
Right. Well, hold on. Let me just clarify 2 statements. When I was talking about mental anguish and how to quantify that, well, I don't have to quantify that because the UN study on African Americans in America actually has done that. Right. When we look at the harassment of the police, right? We know the federal FBI has done a federal investigation that talks about how white supremacy groups have infiltrated the police force, right? All nationwide, right? Those are FBI reports there, right? So even though I'm just mentioning these things, right? There is study and evidence to back up what I'm saying. And then the last point I'm saying is this: the reason why I'm saying I'm rejecting the constraints is because people have already mapped out what reparations will look like and how will you go about it. And that's why I'm pointing everybody to Sandy Dirty. It's not actually my idea. It's just the things that I read. And that's why I'm pointing to Sandy Dirty. So just to clarify, have those clarifying points.
So when we look at economic spending, there's not one time in America that you could look at a prosperous era that didn't come from government spending, right? That didn't come from the government doing the initial investment. And so the reason why I'll always frame it as a business opportunity is because, for example, here in Ohio, right, the majority of real estate developers, construction workers, they're white. right? They're white or
Mhm.
Latino. So
Mhm.
because the money's got to be passed through white institutions anyway, like white banks and everything like that,
Mhm.
if as long as it's based on, okay, you use it for, let's say you want to build a house, remodel your home, or if you already got that, maybe over 20 years you get a check cut, right? But let's say I want to use my reparations entitlement benefits in order
Mhm.
to build a crib. Hot sauce, I have to break bread with a white construction company, right? And then
There you
and in
go.
this and because we're a consumer spending country, because
Uh-huh.
government spending has always been the basis for economic booms and prosperous times, by nature it's still an all lives matter policy, because black people, as only being 13 to 15% of the population,
Mhm.
has to break bread with the other races in order for this policy to even work.
So, yeah, yes, you need cooperation across the aisle for this policy to pass. I agree to that, but I would disagree that you need white people to remodel your home. I would say go to Black Enterprise, right? Blackenterprise.com, where there's tons of black businesses that are highlighted every month, right? There are
For
tons of
sure, hot
black
sauce, but there's just not enough of them, you know
Bro,
that.
there's 14%
no,
of
no,
the
but
They
my
have
populace.
to
point
also
is,
be
hold on,
competitive
hold on.
too.
Let me
So
let me let me let me let me let my plane, right? There are a ton of black construction companies. There's over 50 black banks with $1 billion in asset cap, right? So you I'm not saying you don't have to work across the aisle, because you do, but there are and enough black black institutions in America to where you can insulate that reparations wealth. Now, for me, I'm getting white strippers. So
Right.
yeah, I
So
need to do that. But
I
outside
disagree
of
with you,
that,
hot sauce, simply because you would
Yeah,
create a constraint that you're worried about. You would create such a
right.
bottleneck that nobody would be able to get
no,
anything done, because
I'm
those
not worried about
institutions
that.
are
hold on,
not only
gentlemen.
very small and
Hold,
limited, there's just not enough.
hold
No,
on for a
I'm
second.
not
Hold on for
worried
a
about
second.
whether they're black
Hold
or
on for a
not. I'm
second,
just
gentlemen.
saying
Hey,
you
look,
can't.
JT, you wanted to get in on this a little bit. How about you, Easy? Y'all want to got anything to say? Just listen.
JT, go right ahead, sir. I'll go after you.
No,
You're
no, no.
muted.
You guys go ahead, man. Y'all gotta roll it, bro.
Yeah, 'cause
Y'all,
they're rolling. Go ahead,
I'm not.
Easy. You got anything?
Let me just clarify a point real quick.
Go
I'm
ahead.
not worried about whether my construction guy is white or not. I'm just saying, if you are worried about that, you can find a black construction guy. That's all I'm saying. I'm not worried about that. I don't really care about that.
Right,
I'm
but
just
I'm
saying for
saying
those who
that's
are.
something we could bring to the table when we're arguing for this policy. When we're trying to negotiate everything, we could be like, hey, this is how this is probably going to work.
So, Tarus, I got one for you, right? So, are you for just one lump sum check or some other way to getting that money?
So in general, the only way anybody could get a lump sum check is either you're A, remodeling your crib you already have, or B, you're buying a crib. You're buying or you're constructing. But let's say, for example, like most of us on this panel, we probably own our homes, right? Or, I mean, mortgage, whatever, but
Yeah,
you get what I
yeah.
mean, right? Maybe we want to get a remodeling done. So let's say, for example, the check is 500K to 750 or whatever, like that.
Right,
Like something actually pretty reasonable, not a million plus like some people think.
right.
I can use whatever I need for a huge remodel project, and then whatever I have left is spread over time. Because we got to remember, like when it comes to economic deficits and budgets and things like that, it's not going to be a one lump sum thing, Pain. So I would prefer that it would be spread between 10 to 20 years. Now, if you're on the older side, I think the older generation can make the argument that, hey, if you're like 55 and up, maybe you can get the one lump sum payment. But for anybody under that, it needs to be spread between 10 to 20 years.
All right. So, all right. Well, okay. So I was looking for tax exemptions, but spread over
Well,
20 years.
well,
So,
I would point to what I would use the number that Sandy Dirty used, which is about 5 million, and I would say lump sum, because you want to protect it against inflation. Yeah, you want to protect it against inflation. So lump sum is always going to do you better than money over time.
How
There's
many
money.
people would be qualified for that, hot sauce, in your estimation, after we went through the qualification?
Whoever can prove their lineage.
So if it, okay, so it has to be so that's your number one thing. You got to prove your lineage, because in the
Yeah.
2 reports I read, they had a couple of categories, and in the AAREAC, you know, they
You're talking
had
about
a
the one in
category
Cali, right,
was like
Payne?
the
The one in Cali, right, Payne?
yeah.
Yeah.
They had like a catch-all kind of thing that if you saw a black person's ass, you can get reparations. You know, so I mean, how do I hear what you're saying. So you qualify. Are we going to be restricting qualification? I mean, because the other report was a little bit more succinct in how they qualified people. Right?
Your social security number will let you know if your ancestry goes all the way back to chattel slavery.
No, it doesn't. I thought you had to actually look it up by like the personnel records and things like that. Like I think we can only trace it back to like 1870, I believe. That's how far back we can go.
Mine was like 1875. Right now, where I'm at, and tracing it back is like 1875.
Yeah.
No, for me,
I couldn't get no further than that myself.
For me, I trace mine to like the late 1700s on my father's side.
Okay.
When I did this for a high school project back in the day, right, where you had to go to like the something family records or something downtown.
But remember, hot sauce, like you said, just because you can do it doesn't mean everyone else can do it.
Hold on for a second before we go down the rabbit hole. How many people do we think will actually qualify based on the constraints we're talking about now?
Probably around 25 mil.
And a bunch of white people.
It's not going to be a full 44 mil. Obviously.
Yeah, it's not going to be 44. It's not going to be the full 40 million.
25 mil is still a lot if you're talking about 5 mil a piece.
True, but as long as it's not a lump sum Payne, that's doable.
Yeah, it won't be the 40. It won't be the full 40 million people.
25 mil times 5 mil is pretty. That's what trillion is that? That's over $1 trillion something down.
That one BET owner. Hey, hot sauce. You remember the BET owner who did the numbers?
Say again.
The BET owner who did the numbers. I think
Bob
it was like
Johnson.
20 years, something like that.
Johnson does it. There's a couple people who did it. Johnson, I can't remember his first name, but Johnson has done it. It's not in the scheme of things in the national budget. It's not a lot of money.
Yeah, it's not a lot of money. Because Payne, you got to remember, it's a lot of this is going to be staggered. Like for example, let's say JT Payne, you guys got children that qualify and they're 16 years old. You're not going to be able to access this benefit until you're like 18, 21. You get what I mean? So a lot of these payments are going to end up being staggered anyway. Not everybody's going to be getting it all at the same time.
But we are talking about $125 trillion.
But Payne, can I jump on their side real quick? I hate to have to jump over the line, but they're already taking our money and diluting our currency to give money to every freaking body else. They're look at what they're paying. I want the money that they're giving to these immigrants that are coming over here that ain't supposed to be here. I want that money.
They gave to Ukraine.
I want that money. I want that money that's going to Ukraine. I want them to stop giving money to Israel. I want that money. Matter of fact, we need to start talking about what Israel owes us, but like that's a different conversation.
But is it Ray? Because Ray, you know this just like I do. The fact is, we can do both. We can give money to Ukraine and Israel and still cut the rate.
No. Wait, Toros. The issue is, it's not. The thing is, we are, me and you, actively are giving money to Ukraine. The government doesn't make money. It's our money. That's the thing y'all don't understand when you say this. Like, and we cannot vote because, and listen to this, Toros. The inflation that we're experiencing now, all the food that people can't afford, all the cars that you can't afford, all the homes that you're never going to be able to buy now, that's the cost. They're taking out from under us as American citizens our birthright from just being here. Forget reparations. They're diluting our currency and making it so that everyday average people can no longer do things that help us get ahead. Doesn't affect me. I'm already in the market. I got a house. Doesn't affect hot sauce. Doesn't affect you. But the generations behind us, their future is being sold out from under them to give these people money. So no, we can't do both. We can't do one.
Well,
We can't
Ray,
do one.
the
They are
reason
making
why I
y'all
say
back
that
in
is
slaves.
because Ray. The reason why I say that is because I'm a big believer that here in America, we've always proven that we can do anything we want if we feel like it.
The
It's always
math,
about whether we
the
feel
math
like it.
doesn't shake out on that.
Yeah,
What's happening right now mathematically,
Ray, I
you're
ride
wrong.
with you in general. I just,
Yeah.
my pushback to you is I just think we can do both. You know, what I mean, that's
Well,
it. Yeah.
but what's happening to our citizens is showing that we can't even do the one. So I'm like, if we're going to give that money out, give it to the people here. I would
I
rather
agree.
that go to everyone here than them, because at least then we might have a chance.
Yeah,
What
if
Well,
we're
it's, if
asking,
it's
gentlemen,
it's
you know
either
what?
or, I absolutely
That
rather that
bill
money
has
go
to
to
come
us.
due.
Yeah.
That bill has to come due someday.
yep,
It just
yes,
has to.
Does it?
yeah,
You
Yeah,
know,
but I will say, I mean, we're saying this in the absence of just like no blowback, correct? Like who,
right?
I mean, at the end of the day, white people were obviously mad at Barack Obama, and that really did change the dynamics, correct? This is not going to happen in isolation, and there is not going to sit over in the side going, "Hey guys, we got this 5 million. Good luck, stupid." It could just sort of blow up in our face, correct? I mean, and ultimately, sure, we could be sitting here having used all of our political power to get money that is going to be problematic or whatever. We would have further enslaved ourselves. We already say that the debt is enslaving. Adding more debt would be more enslaved, correct? Like it becomes all problematic when we think about these things as if you put it over here by itself and then magic happens. And I think part of the problem with reparations is who is paying for it, correct? If you were not here, if you're not a white American, should your taxes go towards paying for African Americans? You know, correct? Like if you are new and you're black, correct, African, should your money go to blacks? For those who are wealthier blacks, should you go now? Their money go to like we're ultimately have to deal with the questions of someone's paying for it eventually.
All right, but historically we've paid for it. Grant, we don't win the Revolutionary War without slavery. Grant, the Union doesn't win the Civil War without slavery. Grant, a lot of the redlining and black codes and things like that.
For us, dude. Like just call it what it is. We paying for that.
And I'm just using the straight financial argument. I'm not using any like feel good kind of stuff or anything like that.
And I want to add something to Tyrus. Grant, Africans don't get accepted into American colleges without the Civil War. I mean, without not just Civil War, without civil rights, without fighting for civil rights. Right? Africans don't go to American universities. Asians don't go to American universities without civil rights. Why are you shaking your head? That's categorical fact.
No,
in my
not true.
How so? How so?
So you're taking one piece of the series of legislation, correct? I would agree exist, and they did it quite a bit for African Americans, and it also broadened the sort of restrictions on certain groups. But you can see over time, you can use the Irish, you can use Italians, who also experience some similar hold on.
Finish.
Yeah,
my point is, whiteness hasn't always included all white people, correct?
Correct.
And so
it was a class denomination.
Yeah,
Sorry,
so you're
Grant.
always, yeah, you're correct. And so you're dealing not just strictly with a race issue. And so we've accepted the idea that race is the thing, although a very small segment of the white population leverage race in order to get poor whites to say, hey, make sure these darkies don't come along. But the reality is they never wanted to include them. And to go back to Ruth's point about West Virginia, the reason West Virginia is poor is because they're being leveraged against African Americans. The point is you keep them poor and dumb and hoping that one day they can reach that whiteness. And so if as long as you blame the darkies for their poverty, correct, that they don't care that they have the boot of capitalism on their neck. This is West Virginia. And so it isn't about reparations. It's about a structure that ultimately favors the wealthy and keeps people fighting and keeps us at odds. And just imagine, there are systems of government, there's systems of economic systems that rewards everyone, or at least attempts to. And we're not talking about communism, we're not talking about socialism. We're talking about the fact that we are already okay with the idea that one person owns all of Burger King and receives all of the benefit, and then we are scrounging so we can get a $20 minimum wage. I mean, how hapless of human beings do we have to be? That number one, we will show up at the teat of the cow and find the smallest one and just squirt just enough that we can get at the tip of our lip. That's what we're trying to do. And the point is, with all of this, is the structure is the problem. But pointing out that white people is the problem is problematic, because not all white people are the problem. And in the most classic point is when Martin Luther King says later on, after he went through everything with civil rights, he pretty much said, "I led black people to a slaughter." That's one of his final words, because he realized that, number one, no matter how free African Americans became, correct, that we are now able to go to white shops, our money now went to white people. It didn't matter, and so you're all the freedom just came along with more shackles, and they just happen to be more hidden. And more.
But to be fair, Grant, here's the thing: when it comes to historical, when it comes to that historical precedent, we have to keep in mind, Grant, the reason why our money doesn't circulate like other demographics is because we're the only demographic who doesn't share the same sort of history that the other demographics do. As much as the Irish and the Italian, hold on, hot sauce. As much as the Irish and the Italians went through it back in the day, they weren't enslaved. They don't have that history. You get what I mean? So when people, like, for example, Nigerians are the most the highest income amongst the African American community, right? Nigerians don't have a history of the Atlantic slave trade like Black Americans that were brought here. They immigrated voluntarily, right, Grant? We're the only demographic who did not come here by our own accord, and so that dynamic's got to be highlighted.
I want to address something earlier. Because again, when we're having a conversation, we need to have the conversation in proper context, in the spirit of fairness, right? So I get the point about how white people weren't all white, but that wasn't the issue. When the issue on the table was who was going to pay for it, and then Tyrus gave historical points how black people have already earned it in this country. Then I added to that by saying that even when you look at civil rights, when the Asians and African immigrants and the Latinos come, they also benefit from civil rights. Matter of fact, the Supreme Court just talked about that, right? They talked about how they were going to get rid of affirmative action because the affirmative action was for Freeman's Journal, but these other immigrants benefit from it. So by you saying that, okay, hey, well, white people weren't this also, that wasn't the context of the conversation. The context of the
Grant, just
to let me finish. Let me finish. The context of the conversation of who's going to pay for it and what African Americans have already done. The conversation wasn't about who classifies as white. The conversation was who is benefiting off the backs of blacks, and that is Asians, and that's African immigrants, right? Now, whether you want to agree or disagree, there's multiple higher learners will all agree to that statement. And so, and here's where I'm going to land my plane, right? When it comes to reparations, and whether, because it seems to me, and I could be wrong, it's about a moral issue. Is it fair to other people? Well, a lot of things in history wasn't fair to other people. And now, whether reparations are fair to other people or not, I don't think that should be a point of contention. The point of it is it fair to African Americans?
Yeah, and Ray and Grant, to piggyback off what Hassas is saying, we got to remember affirmative action from the labor market benefited primarily white women. Affirmative action from the student body from college primarily benefited Asians.
Right.
Okay.
Hey, listen. Go ahead. Who's gonna?
I was gonna say that when we were talking to what Tarus was saying about the context of black people never having anything. Actually, we had all of our own industries post slavery, right out of slavery.
Yeah, but they took it from us, Ray.
No. But listen, the burning building comment was because King understood the economics at that point. He understood that to be a community, to actually be a community and compete and to circulate dollars, You have to have something that other communities want because, like I said earlier, if everyone just passes their dollar to the guy to the left, then you only have those dollars. You've got to get inflow from another community that where you sell something. Asian people, when they come over here, when they're getting set up, the first thing they do, open a restaurant. Everybody works at the restaurant. They have something to take money from another community. Asian people buy cars. Asian people buy Toyotas. When I go to the Toyota dealership, it's not Asian people that work there.
Right.
It's not. They're giving money to other communities, but they have something that draws money in from other communities that's also there.
I agree, but
So
because of that
integration,
dynamic, Ray, we export.
prove
We
that,
don't have the ability to import or
But
to
fellas,
do that import.
but listen, Tarus. Pre that, Black people, literally, when we were isolated, we did have industry. We did own things. And what happened? Once he got everybody integrated, it evaporated immediately.
That's not
Well,
Ray. I'm sorry.
no,
That's
it
not
did.
true at all. That's
It
not
did.
true at all.
It did.
Ray, do
there's
you realize
elements of both things are true.
the
Go
two
ahead.
mass immigration movements of Black Americans, one right after the Civil War? Why? Because there was white domestic terrorism left and right. They literally, it wasn't just the
I'm not saying
Ray,
that
it
those
was
things didn't
okay,
happen,
but
Tarus.
no.
What I'm
But what I'm
was,
saying is,
we
but
not
Ray,
own things.
remember what you're saying. Yes, we had the industries on lock. Remember, that's also the time we had the most Black representation in government in U.S. history, correct? And then what happened? Things like South Carolina, where white people banded together to burn or to come and kill a whole bunch of Black people, and literally declared that this was an all-white state.
That happened. What I'm saying is, you were saying that it didn't exist, and it did. That's all I'm saying. Beyond that, I understand what happened in between there.
Okay,
I do know the history, sir. I was just saying that when we posited it, so we never did anything, and we did everything.
Okay, Ray, but
that's all I was. That's all challenging.
Okay,
Hold on,
Ray,
let me
but I have
ask
to
this one
push back
question.
because you made it seem like we lost it because we were incompetent. That's what
No, I'm saying we lost it because once we got to integration, we went, oh, our bus lines, because then once we integrated, we allowed them to use policy
hold on.
infrastructurally.
Well, hold on. Before anybody else goes, I'm going to say this. See, because Tarus, you're not wrong, but we can't deny that there was Black flight by Black people once integration came.
But why?
It was. Well, hold on. Here's one reason why, and not being the only. See, because there's levels to this, right?
Yeah.
A lot of Black businesses only thrived because they had a captive audience. So once that audience left, their quality may not have been to the area for some people. And there was a lot of Black people who just wanted. See, I think in America, nobody would be talking about integration if we weren't here. I think everybody else would be completely happy just living next to other people and bartering back and forth. The only people talk about integration is Black people. Nobody else gives a shit about it.
But Payne, to push back on that.
Let me say two things real quick. So, first of all, are we not aware of the white terrorism that happened? 50 Black cities. Let me finish. 50 Black cities were flooded. You got FBI reports that says yes, Black people are being terrorized and getting their economics taken away from them.
Nobody's denying that.
Please let me finish.
But we're not even talking about that, though.
Yes, we are, because that.
No. Nobody's denying the atrocities. That's the problem I have.
But Payne, the atrocities is the reason they migrated. When you mentioned the migration, that's the reason they left.
We're talking about integration. Let's bring it up to when integration became popular, right?
One of the reasons
it wasn't all the way back
integration
then in the Reconstruction era. We're not talking about that. We're talking about not up into the 60s or the Southern flight up to the north in the 50s from the Sonic generation and all of that kind of stuff. When integration
there was two mass Black migration patterns.
Nobody's denying all the Holocaust that was happening to us. I'm not talking about that.
Can I say something?
Go ahead, Hot Sauce. Go ahead.
Can I go? I'm going to hop off, Hot Sauce, if I can just.
Okay, go ahead. Say your part in shots, Grant.
Yeah, I want to say thank you, everyone.
Thank you for stopping in, man.
A great conversation. I just want to add this one point to you guys. I don't think anyone's wrong in a sense of what African Americans have gone through. I think we can continue to talk through what does it look like in the future? I think we can most certainly turn down the temperature of sort of our frustrations. And I'm not saying we can't be heated and animated, but I think we're all. I think maybe we should steel man where we all want to get to, and I think we'll be better off instead of. At times, I think it feels like we're shouting over what our things are points that we all agree on. We just may be using different linguistic styling. So,
I agree with that.
thank you guys.
Later, Grant. You're
Man, I appreciate it.
So,
all right, well, we're going to go through final thoughts anyway.
Great combo.
Yeah, we're going to have some final thoughts because we're going on 3 hours. You know, who wants to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. I'll go first because
go ahead,
So the point of it is that white terrorism actually never stopped. It never stopped. So the reason why there was integration and things like that, because one of the factors is what Tyrus was saying, is because of terrorism. You flooded 50 fucking cities in the 60s. In the 60s, you flooded cities, all black cities, right? So of course you will have integration, right? You flooded my shit. So at the end of the day, it has to be counted in reparations. And I will just say this: I don't understand why we're so adverse to money under the pretext of being moral or not. If you are a black person and someone's saying, "Hey, here's $5 million," you take it. It don't matter why. It don't fucking matter why.
That's fair, Hot Sauce. I'll give you that.
So that's what I believe it. So regardless of where you land morally or reparations, whatever, I was taught if you can take $5 million, you take it. And I'll leave it there. Y'all have a good night.
All right, man. Thanks for coming on, man.
All right.
Who's next? Who wants to go next?
I'll go next.
Go ahead, Tyrus.
I like this combo. I felt it was productive. Like, I thought it was really good.
Yeah, we chopped it up, man.
Yeah. We got to remember, guys, I've said it before. This is not, a lot of these things aren't point A to point B. This is a spider web. It's a pool. If there's a splash over in this corner, it can absolutely have ripple effects in the other corner, right? There's a lot of these things happening at the same time. And so, because some of you guys have me on Facebook and you know my real name, my name is Reggie Lee Surratt Jr. If you've ever heard of the last name Surratt, that's because you probably heard of Mary Surratt, the white lady that helped try to hide Booth, who just killed the president, Abraham Lincoln. That's where I trace my ancestry to. Unfortunately, that's beyond a shadow of a doubt. Payne, you know what happened to the slaves that lived on those plantations? They tried to have their own industries. The government tried to give it to them, especially after the court hearings. But you know what those white people did? They took it. And you know what my family did? They fled up north. That's one of the reasons for the immigration. People, we got to remember, there were two mass migration patterns of Black Americans here in America, right after the Civil War and during Jim Crow. Both reasons was because the South refused to have any sort of integration with Black people. And so we fled up north. Even though, yes, the North was racist, we still had a better chance of making it and actually integrating than we did the South.
Yeah, my father-in-law was part of the second migration.
Yep. And so, right, that's why Chicago became a historic Black city. That's why Detroit,
I went to school in Buffalo, and that was the last stop on the Underground Railroad. So,
JT, you know, that's one big reason we became the Rust Belt states.
Yep.
Massive industry. And so we just got to remember that a lot of these things happen at the same time. And yes, sometimes the power that be, guys, they're going to look at it and go, if we can screw over a few white people in order to make sure the other Black people don't get theirs, we absolutely will. West Virginia, Kentucky. People remember the reason we have a lot of private Christian schools was because wealthy white people did not want Black kids integrating into the school system. And so they knew that even though some of these white kids are going to suffer because we're not having in the public institutions, we know no Black kids are going to get into our institutions. And those are my final thoughts. It's not limited.
Appreciate you coming up, man. Good conversation. Thank you.
Have a great night, guys.
It's all right. Hey, BMU, you up here? What's up, man?
Hey, what's going on, gentlemen? Can y'all hear me real good?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I wanted to hop into just for a quick second. I remember doing a show about a year ago on YouTube where I used to have a daily show where I dedicated 1 hour of my lunch to going back in history and exposing history. Basically, YouTube decided, no, nigga, YouTube removed all of those videos because they understood that they were true. When Hot Sauce was up here talking about towns being flooded, and there are several towns that were booming like Tulsa, black towns, nobody bothering nobody, and they decided to go in and take domain over that land and say, you niggas better be out of here or we're going to show you something else. A few, just to give an example for those out there who will go back and watch this episode, which has been a great one. You could go to Oscarville, Georgia, Lake Lanier, sitting on top of one of the most booming black economic towns ever. You can go to Cuyahoga in Benson, Alabama, underwater. A booming town, had its own church, had its own bowling alley, had its own clothing stores, booming underwater. You can go to Seneca Valley in New York City, right? Underwater. Matter of fact, if you go to New York City and go through what's the famous park in New York City? Central Park.
Yeah.
Central Park was a black town. It belonged to black people. They went in there and they took it. If you didn't want to leave, they took your life and they made it. They said that the city needed to have something beautiful to walk through, something elegant for people of Caucasian descent to walk through and have something beautiful. So they took it and made it Central Park. So when you walk through Central Park, you're walking on the graves of those people who had a booming town. You can go to Susanna, Alabama, and it was flooded by Lake Martin. Lake Martin is sitting on top of a town. More than listen here, after they found out about this flooded town 50 years later, 900, I want to put this number out there, 900 bodies were removed from the bottom of that lake. Let me say it again. Susanna, Alabama, 900 bodies. They flooded the town while everybody slept. 900 bodies, skeletal remains, was taken off the bottom of that lake. If you go to New York City, right by the Twin Towers, they were building some type of bank. They found 1,500 bodies under the foundation of that building of slaves, mass graves of slaves under that. So when we're in Vanport, Oregon, I'll say it's a whole long list, but I'll give you 5. Vanport, Oregon, same thing. After World War II, 40,000 black people was in one town. 40,000 of them. Guess what? They released the hounds. Let that river flow in there. And once it get in there, we want to flood them. And we don't give a fuck about the kids. We don't give a fuck about the women. We don't give a fuck about the men. Let them drown. And then last but not least, Devil's Punch Bowl in Mississippi. Booming town. They got their freedom. They were freed slaves, had their papers. And the white people said, hell no. You used to work for us, and now you're going to have your own houses, your own property, your own land. Not going to happen. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to throw all y'all ass in the Devil's Punch Bowl. It was a hole that you couldn't get out of unless somebody threw your rope. They threw families, men, children, women, and they made them dig the hole deeper every day. And they worked you until you died. And when you died, they had the other slaves, former slaves, bury you where you died. And they kept digging and digging and digging. Now today, the Devil's Punch Bowl in Mississippi has the most plentiful peaches that you've ever seen in your life. There's a movie coming out about this, guys, where the roots of those peaches are going through the bones of those slaves. And you're eating the body and the flesh of those slaves through those peaches. And those white people come from around the country to gather those good old peaches because they don't make them like that. And no more, you can't buy them like that in the store. And the black people in the town say the Devil's Punch Bowl is cursed. They will never eat the peaches because you're eating the bodies of those slaves. So when we say reparations, God damn it, write the motherfucking check. And I rest my case.
Yeah, I've got no argument from that point because any argument that I argue pro reparations is from that point forward. And I mean, I can tell you, Kansas City, we have a highway that's running directly. Like they built this big woodsy median, 2 lane, or it's like 4 lanes on each side, but it's a thoroughfare. It's not even like an actual highway, and it's very inconvenient. But they built it to break up an affluent black neighborhood, and they put the highway right through it. Granted, we were a little bit more civilized up here the further north you get. they didn't off the people. They just took their they took their houses and made them move. Like, but no, I from that perspective, there is money owed because they never reimbursed and there was never any charges filed. I mean, we still have pictures. They have those pictures of lynchings from down there. All them people are still alive and free as day, and they're in a picture where they have just deleted somebody, and those people still exist. So from that perspective, like, yeah, like they never tried. We never got any justice for any of that. Like they just did these things to people. And so if you're affected in that respect, yes. But in 2024, our trauma comes from reading about it, not necessarily experiencing it. And the whole black flight thing, the people who integrated did not get treated well. My grandfather worked for the government, and when I was a baby in 1984, mom just had me. They went to his house because he moved into an all-white neighborhood, and they were the first black family, and he worked for the government. And they went to his house and tried to burn his house down. That's in 1984.
All right.
So,
Reckless Ray. Can I say this real quick? Reckless Ray, real quick. Reckless,
yeah.
And everybody else on the panel, can you imagine the wealth, the generational wealth, in all these towns we just talked about, versus all these people who had land? OG Patrice, if you're listening out there, shout out to you. OG Patrice, her great grandmother is still alive. They found out that their great grandmother, a man came to their house, stole their paperwork to their land, and now what sits on that land is a shopping mall.
Mm-hmm.
They sued, they won. The whole family is benefiting because now they leased that land to the owner who thought he was the owner of the land. Now they got a 30-year lease on his ass, and the whole family benefits from that mall being on that land. How many black people have been fucked? This shit, I'm passionate about this shit. How many black people have been fucked out of their land, their property, their 600 acres, 300 acres? Matter of fact, I was just watching Silver Dollar Road. Had anybody seen that documentary about a black family who owned a fucking island in South Carolina? Owned all the fucking shrimp, the fishing line, everything. Owned the whole fucking
the market,
property.
everything.
Yeah, they owned the whole. I mean, goddamn, damn near 1,000 acres. Yeah, damn near 1,000 acres of land.
Yep, two of the brothers were put in sentence in jail for 8 years because they refused to move. They was trying to muscle them up out of there, and they spent that 8 years too.
Yep, they put them in jail for 8 years for not leaving their own property. Yep.
Matter of fact, like, man, we definitely. I would love. I don't know if you've seen it yet. Arpain, De Niro. It's, man, I'm telling you, I didn't know it was going to turn out the way it turned out, because they were trying to balance the story, but at the end of the day, man, it broke it down, because they try to let you know how it was with family. Everybody used to come down there, and that's where they used to have all their family.
And the old lady is Silver Dollar Road. You know what? The old lady that owned it, that got passed down from family members. I mean, this is a generational thing. It got passed down from slave, because the slave bought it from the slave owner before he died. And then the slave owned it. Then he passed it down to his son. His son passed it, went all the way down. And now the fucking what do you call it? These goddamn motherfuckers come in and want to tear it. The developer came in and said, "Oh no, this land don't belong to y'all." And they come in there with bulldozers and start tearing that motherfucker down.
Yeah. They're still in litigation.
Exactly.
They're still in litigation. It's something that everybody probably needs to see, or at least we need to talk about.
What's that on Netflix? What's it on?
You can watch it on Hulu.
Okay,
Prime.
Say it again. Prime
Video.
Yeah,
Amazon Prime. Think about it. You own 1,000 acres of land for 300 years, and then on the 302nd year, a motherfucker come and take it from you.
Yep. Yeah.
All
I
right.
think it's something that we need to talk about when it comes down to what you would just. It goes along the lines of the reparations and things like that, and but it's more of a family thing and how people, because there was people in their family that did not want to fight. They didn't even want to fight. All those people that used to come down there and they enjoyed themselves down there, and you couldn't even get most of the family to come down there and help you fight for that shit.
But
big man, we need to talk about it.
Yeah, but JT, I mean, if you think about it, and to your point, BMU, I'll 100% give you that. We're in 100% alignment. I can't even argue it because you're right. That's the surface level where somebody took something from us. The issue was that is the exact same generational curse that has now been handed down. That is the result. That's the direct result of the de-evolution and the dissolution of the Black community. Because what did they do? They taught it's tall poppy syndrome. They taught you get too far out of line, you try. That's the reason. Like when I was growing up, everything that involved bettering yourself or being financially literate was considered white people shit. That's what they did.
Yeah.
That's what all of that did. We are not rich. We gotta be poor. That's white people stuff. Don't mess with money. Don't get land. We don't buy houses. We rent. Owning a house is white people shit.
Ray, they had a fishing hole, bro, untapped, where they can get their fishing shit, and the fishing hole they had right there was out cold. Dumb people told them they had a law. They made it where they couldn't even go and they couldn't even fish there no more. They were trying to tell them because they had a small tugboat, not even a tugboat. It was just a small a minnow, and that motherfucker was. It couldn't get on those Florida waves, man. And they knew that it was going to be like that. It was like so many different ways on how these folks got man. It's
All right. So JT, since you up, man, what's your final thoughts, man?
So great conversation. You notice I had to let you guys cook, man, because it was just I had to think while you guys were talking, man, because when we first started T-Pain. I'm in love with a stripper.
T-Pain is the stripper.
That's all right, man. Go ahead, man. Ignore these guys. Are you out of your fucking mind? Are you crazy?
When we first started with the us going back and forth, I told you from the beginning, man. It's like. It's a lot of things that we have to consider. And I'm glad that you guys took that conversation, man, and y'all made it, you had people pondering. So it got me to the point where I was like, well, shit, I don't have to add nothing because y'all was cooking so much where it just had me thinking. And it had me getting to a point where whether we get reparations or not, at least we can have the conversation about it and we can have it on an intellectual, standpoint. And that's what I think a lot of people need to hear, because at the end of the day, I ain't gonna even lie. I'm at the point where it's like, shit, after going through all this shit, cut the goddamn check. Fuck it. We'll figure it out. We gonna figure it out. You know what I'm saying? So I'm glad we had this conversation, brother. I'm glad we had it.
There you go, man. Thanks for coming up. Hey, Easy, what you got? Easy money.
Well, first and foremost, thanks for having me on. Definitely appreciate the time. Anytime I get to chat with some incredible individuals like yourselves. JT recognized my troll, but here's the thing: even when I troll, there's something in there for you to ponder on. So, I appreciate I appreciate you calling me out. So, just real quick. My grandfather had to move to East Chicago, Indiana, because the Klan chased his family out of Mississippi because they thought my great grandfather was married to a white woman, and they didn't do that. My father was at the spear end of desegregation in Gary, Indiana. So desegregating the schools. He played on the first Little League team, the first Black Little League team to play at the Little League World Series. He was the only Black in his, whatever that he was doing, jumping out of planes and putting out fires in the Air Force and all of that. And so, my generation is probably the first one that is like post-segregation, post-Klan. And it's just interesting now kind of seeing us, have these conversations to where, we've got all this history and we stand on the shoulders of our ancestors. And my fear is that, because of some of the lack of education and because of some of the lack of the critical thinking, that we may end up going backwards. And I pray to God that we don't. I pray to God that we continue to put our foot on the gas, continue to do better for these future generations coming up behind us, because it's about to get worse. I don't know if you guys saw this, but there's hedge funds buying up houses in all these cities. The American dream of owning a home is starting to go away. Our money is worth less and less, and it's just getting tougher out here, man. So hug you babies, love you babies, and that's it for me.
All right. Well, hey, listen, I appreciate all you guys coming up, man. So it was good. I like my tax thing better, but in any case, reparations, I can go with that. We should have some kind of reparations. I think that, based on what Grant said, I can agree with him. Maybe there's some inflationary stuff, but I don't think there's anything more inflationary than just stroking a big ass check for $125 trillion. But that's another thing. But if the checks come, I'm taking mine, But anyway, so I'm not turning that shit down. I mean, so let's not get it twisted. But I was just saying, because based on the 400 years of slavery, or however many years it was, and 160 years or 8 generations after the Emancipation Proclamation, all those years we caught a lot of hell, and here we are still standing. Now, I think that the puppet masters almost have the coup de grace a little bit because of the way we have this gender war, which is actually manufactured by the puppet masters, right? And the fact I'm not even going to point fingers at women or men. We're both players in this kind of game. It's not equivalent, but it's there. And I think as men starting to stand up, maybe we can stem the tide. But we need to have something that galvanizes us again. I don't know if it's around reparations. There's got to be something that galvanizes us as a community, and we still haven't found it. But men finding their voices is a start. The failure of a shit show like The Color Purple is a start. That we're not going to go ahead and retrain a whole group of new people to hate fucking black men. You know what I'm saying? So. With that, I appreciate it, BMU, man. It was a good show. Thanks for letting me use the channel. And listen, I do have my sports show at 6 o'clock, so y'all guys can come over here and chop it up because it's over by the time you have your sports show over here. Right? I think it's at 7:30 Eastern. Okay. So, so anyway, I try to make
great show tonight, brother. And you need to start taking ownership of this as being your show, brother. You could give me product, that's fine. That's fine. I don't care about all that. I don't care about it.
I understand.
But I want you to, this is your baby, brother. You did a wonderful job tonight, man. And from the first week until now, you've grown as a host and you've grown as a provider of information. And I want to give you your flowers, brother. You did an absolutely wonderful job today, brother. Great show.
Hey, I appreciate that. All right, hey, so with that, without hey, the Boomer, Mr. Boomer, over and out, man. Thank you, everybody.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast racking up the flight miles. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle. Wait a minute, work hard for the car, so that's why it's all tinted. Wait a minute, had a real late night, woke up with my head spinning out Nashville. It's been mad real, I need sunglasses, I need Advil. I like fake boobs, and my cash real. I like first place, you're in last still. Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast racking up the flight miles. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle.
Look, pocket, rocket in my pocket. Please don't make me pop it. All these boys just wanna copy the style. Tell them niggas stop it. Whoa, whoa. It's my destiny. Feel like Latoya, like it found me my Beyonce, and she shotgun in the cockpit. Grinding with the team, making C-notes. In my pocket still full of green, call it CeeLo. Alligator watch on me, Tim Tebow. And these haters love to watch me like Tebow. Look, I don't take L's, I just learn a lesson. Before I count the M's, always count my blessings. Look, I'm too sure, never second guessing. Got some money, put up for the rain, so I'm never stressing.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Them foes been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast racking up the flight miles. So high, I might never come down.